All right, let's switch this over here. You guys should be able to hear me and see me, and I will go out of studio mode so that all works. All right, so what are we doing today? I figured I'd get back to some of the lab roots. It seems like people enjoy doing labs and working through Linux topics. So we're going to do security engineering in Linux. We're going to go through the course that we have, and if anybody wants to do any of the labs with me, let me know. I'm going to be working on them, and should be able to get in here, and we're going to go to our security automation course, which should send us to one of our Hammer servers, and it looks like we got dropped in Hammer 2, so somebody's probably using Hammer 1 in some way. How's it going, Zorgal? We're just going through the... I'm just going to make sure everything's cleaned up and that the lab is working since I've rebuilt it all, right? I just like to walk through things and make sure they're good. If anybody wants to follow along, the book for this was put together by the community. It is free. It is here on the Twitch and YouTube side. How's it going over on the YouTube side with Xshunya over there? We are, yeah, we're just going to get in and do some of the labs. I'm just going to walk through, make sure that the stuff still works the way that I kind of expect it to. So there's a little bit of a flashbang here, guys. I can't help it. When you go to your Stig viewer, there's no way to do it in dark mode. No real way. It's Stig viewer doesn't really do anything, but I will try to minimize it by making it a little smaller. So we will be forced in some ways here to do some Stigs, which is fine. I think that that's a good thing to practice through, and that's actually part of a lot of the labs is understanding how you're going to interact. When you're building systems, right, you don't build, like I try to emphasize this for Linux engineers, the years of us just like living in the basement and nobody knowing what the hell we do working, that's not how it works anymore. We have to be part of the company. We have to be part of the teams. We don't just build stuff down in the basement casting spells and nobody knows what we do. Now, don't get me wrong, nobody knows what we do anyways, but as long as things are working, we still have to like report up, and there's these things that are requirements. So the way that we interact when we build stuff securely is typically through like Stig reports about the servers that we build and about the things that we're doing. So the first lab, the first thing that we did in the security course dealt with securing a Linux server, right? And actually all of the weeks kind of touched the Stig viewer in some way. So I just warning everybody, there's a little bit of a flashbang component. The dark mode on it is actually worse to look at, so we're not going to even bother with the dark mode. But build standards and compliance. We talk about building standards and compliance in cybersecurity engineering ensures that systems adhere to industry best practices, regulatory requirements, and security frameworks, reducing risks and vulnerabilities. So I agree with that. And I would also say that if you thought for a second, like, how do I know anything, right? Like, how do I know what the security vulnerabilities are? How do I know what the dangers are out there in the world? Well, you could be like, I don't know, precognant or whatever they call that, where you just know everything, but most people aren't that. So what you might do instead is follow in the paths of the industry, and the industry defines standards on how we might secure things, right? So, yeah, we're gonna have that, and then we're gonna implement some structured guidelines around the STIGs, which are secure technical implementation guides, and the NIST. We talk a little about the NIST CIS benchmark standards, but we don't really go into them too much. Okay. So, anyways, we're down here. We're doing the labs. We'll walk through. That's all. This stuff's all good. There's stuff you guys can watch if you want to go do it. We're not actually doing the full course right now, but we are getting into the labs. So we're down in the build compliance lab stuff. And then we hop onto one of our systems like Hammer here, and we just start doing stuff here. So we maybe say mount grep-i no exec, and we see which which mount points on our server are mounted with no exec. Now, I might not know what no exec is right now, but I know that there's some standard out there that defines when something is set to be no exec. In fact, if I want to find that, I'm going to go to my little flashbang. Let's say I went to RHEL 9, so I was using Red Hat Enterprise 9 Linux, and Rocky or Alma would also follow the same STIG. And there's 452 total STIGs here. But I want to filter down to maybe just no exec. No exec. So I can go search, and these are the ones that talk about no exec in some type of way, right? Talk about how no exec is set. and talks about the reasons and why we may want to do that. So if you've never looked at a STIG, here you go. A separate RHEL 9 file system must be mounted for home directories. Okay. /home or an equivalent. So let me look real quick on here. I may do mount grep-i no exec, and then I might do something like grep for home and just see if home is mounted separate. Home is not mounted separate. Another way you can check to see if home is mounted separate is something like this. And if home, wait a minute, looks like home is mounted separate. That's weird. Well, I see it over there. Spell something wrong? Oh, well, it is mounted separate, but it doesn't have no exec on it, so that's even better. So now you might say, well, Scott, are you in compliance on this server? No, we are not in compliance on the server with this particular STIG. Now, that being said, and probably one of the biggest things that I could possibly impart to you when we talk about security is that unless you want to be just some STIG monkey who just goes and turns shit on and goes woo, 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 and fucking just sticks whatever, what would be better is to understand the implications, right? What the implications of having no exec on a home file system. Now, over here it tells us what it's about. Ensure that home is mounted on its own partition, enables the setting of more restrictive mount points, and helps to ensure that users cannot trivially fill partitions used for log or audit data storage. So having home off on its own ensures that you can't fill up stuff like var, var log. Oh, man. Sorry. My wife makes fun of me for how loud I sneeze, so I apologize for that. But hold on a second. This is home is on its own partition here. So it is adhering to that. But we don't have no exec set. So what that means, so think about the implications here. If no exec is set in home directories, you are causing any of your developers or any of your users that are ever on that server to not be able to execute out of their home directory. That can be a massive problem for people. A lot of people like to develop. They like to set up an environment and build a little folder, pull down Git, work in there, test, and then run stuff out of their home. They even set home in their paths. Well, you would be stopping that right here. So one of the things you might say right away is, well, I have a reason for why I'm not going to adhere to this STIG in my environment. I get that the STIGs are the things that they are. That's fine. The older we get, the louder our sneezes are. That's funny. That's probably true. I remember when I was like 29, I was working at Lockheed Martin, and I sneezed and I popped one of my ribs out. And I remember, I'm only 29. This isn't supposed to happen to me. But yeah. It's yeah. So it's an interesting thing that that is part of a standard. But if we understand why the standard exists, we may, for our own reasons, not adhere to the standard. We may say that, or in our case, we could say that, geez, I'm glad this thing will not let me click out of there. Separate 9 RHEL file system must be used for home directories. Well, we are using a separate file system, but it is NFS mounted, and NFS share is, it says right here, if separate entry for home is not in use, this is a finding, right? And it says migrate home onto its own file system. So in this one, it actually doesn't care if it's no exec. So we would be passing on this STIG, right? Real quick, if anybody cares, we may go to this and we select this one, and then we do a checklist, and we create a checklist from the marked STIG, which is only the one. And then now we can actually have a STIG checklist for, let's say, Hammer 2 server. And this would be, I'm just going to tell you right now, this would be a tremendous amount of work, like on the order of like a day plus like 8 to 16 hours worth of work to fill this out for a server. We don't do that. We don't, it's, you guys ever heard the I don't even want to bring that up, but like the gym term of raw dogging, you go to, I know what the other term means, but I'm saying like, it's the gym idea that like you go into a gym and you don't have headphones on and you don't have anything distract you, you just do whatever you're going to do. Or you go for like a 12-mile run and you just do whatever it is, but you don't have headphones or music or nothing to distract you, you just do it. Well, that's insanity to me. What we typically do with these things is we run STIG reports, and we can get our STIG information out, and then we only have to draw in a few of these other things, right? We can only fix the things that we need to. So I like to do standards reports. I show you guys how to do those in other labs or whatever. But let's focus on the lab that we're doing here. I just wanted to show you guys kind of some of the pieces of this. So now we would look for maybe mount and then grep for no dev. See if things are no dev and no suid. And now those are all the values that we might see, but we've got to go tie those back to the different reports and the different systems that we're working on, right? So I just wanted you guys to see that. There's also a bunch of other places that we're going to get that information from. sysctl will give you it'll dump 982 kernel parameters that are tunable in real time on the system. We can change these right now, and we can change them for just this server instance of the kernel running, or we can persistently set them for all the server versions running in the future. And for right now, let's go look at like just grep for IPv4. And that's a lot, so maybe we word count -L just to see how many it is. You could also do that a different way. If you want to see them still, but you still want to count them, you can throw a number line in front of them. So it's still 316, but now I can at least see what some of them are. So you can play with this however you want. Maybe you grep for syn, right? You want to know all the SYN, and then maybe you don't want the word count on there. You want to just know. So here's all the IPv4 syn, which tends to deal with TCP/IP, SYN/ACK type stuff, and you want to change the behavior of that. One of the later labs we talk about this, but you can look at ICMP, right? So within IPv4, we can deal with if our system responds to ICMP echoes or not. And do we want to ignore all? We can turn that on, and like some of you guys, if you've worked in environments that are mixed and you have some Windows servers, and if you've ever turned on I want to say anything past Windows 10 probably did this, where the firewall's on, so it just black holes ICMP. So you can't ping the network and ping sweep and find things anymore. And that's pretty common in environments to just turn off ping sweeps. However, when we're setting them up and when we're doing different stuff, sometimes it's nice to have your systems respond to ICMP, at least locally. You can also turn it off with firewall. There's all kinds of other filtering we can do on top of it. This is just how the kernel behaves. And if we turn this off, if we set this on, it will ignore all ping requests, whether they're valid or not, whether we trust the thing or not. So I bring that up to say, there's all these settings and things, right? So what do? Do we just turn them all on and secure everything? No. We have to balance usability and functionality with what's going on in the system. So anyways, I show you one with grep forward, and then lsmod. We look at lsmod a little bit. And anybody that's wondering, if you got in here a little later, we are going through, apparently I don't have anything with tables, which is fine. I'm going through the labs and the Hammer servers to make sure that the labs still align and we can still do the stuff that we need to do. Okay, I want everything to work for you guys. Xshunya GPUs in the cluster. I don't know, man. I just checked yesterday and Digit still isn't out yet. So we want to get one of those little Digit boxes, but we haven't gotten around to that yet. So they're still on back order or pre-order. So we don't have one yet. But I do have approval from the wife to buy one when it comes out. So I'll do it. So in the lab, I say go download the Stig Viewer. Look, guys, Stig Viewer is available for anybody. You want the one for either your Linux or your Windows. It is a hassle to get it to work on Mac, but I know guys that have gotten it to work on Mac. So I know that you can definitely put this thing on Mac if you wanted to. And then I also tell you to download the MariaDB Enterprise Stig. So we're going to do some stuff with MariaDB today. One thing I want to do in this environment, we're not wwctl, we're doing system ctl status. ww client. All right, the client's running. We're going to stop the client for now. And the reason we're going to do that is we don't want this system to behave as though it is part of the cluster for a little bit. We don't want it to be taking some host information and password information. Don't worry about that for right now. But I'm turning it off in my environment. I probably should add that to the lab because it will make the life easier for this stuff. But we're going to connect over. So now we're on one of the Hammer servers. We were already there. And we're going to install MariaDB. get MariaDB server up. While we're doing that, and we're letting that start, we're going to also come over here to our Stig viewer, Flashbang, right? And I'm going to get rid of this checklist. I don't care for it. Don't really. And the one that I want to look at right now is the MariaDB one, right? Or some people call it MariaDB. I don't really. I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter to me what it's called. But for us and for this server, we've made a new checklist, and we have 110 things that we need to harden for this box. Well, it's going to probably take us a while. Colchis, how's it going? I'm just going through the lab. I'm going through the lab book, and I'm looking for problems. If I see any problems, items to fix, things that when I rebuilt the lab environment didn't get put back in there correctly. So I'm not necessarily testing. For you guys earlier, I was saying how this was built by the community, and Colchis is one of the members of the community that helped build it. I'm not necessarily testing you guys and like fixing this stuff. Although if I find something, I'll get it noted. But it's more to fix my side of things, the hammer block side of things that I think are probably busted in some way. So going along with the lab system, CTL status, MariaDB, dead, turn it on. Make sure that it starts. How do we check that it starts? We check its status. We see it running. Then if we know that MariaDB runs by default on port 3306, we might look NTULP, SS-NTULP will tell us all of our open ports, but we want to go down to just 3306, which is the default for that. And then there's our MariaDB, and it maps back to the PID 1647671, which should be right here. There's our main PID right there. Good. The thing's running. We know that it's there. We can also maybe get away with MySQL. MySQL by default will try to connect with a passwordless root on my local machine, 127.0.0.1, and it happened to connect. By the way, guys, let's just be clear about one thing real quick. That's a security violation right there. Like, in the big scheme of things, if you ever let security see you do what I just did, they'd be like, you just connected to that thing with no password, no elevation, no whatever, and you're full root, right? But by the way, that's going to be one of the vulnerabilities we're going to go find. So let's go. Now we've got MariaDB running, and we've got our Stig viewer open, and I say to go check this Stig 253666. So I come over here, and I put them in order. 253666. That's the first one. Oh, I'm very clever. I made you guys look at the first one. And it says, this MariaDB must limit the number of concurrent sessions and organization define numbered users for all accounts and or account types. Okay, says a whole bunch of stuff to say that you need to protect your system. Here's the discussion on it. Database management includes the ability to control the number of users and sessions. Okay. My head's going to explode because I'm not a database guy, but there's the things that we need to do to secure this system, right? And as sysadmins and systems engineers, if we're going to provide these type of systems to our customers, and by the way, I tend to, my company, we sell, and we partner with Dell to sell to different customers fully working supercomputing, high performance compute type systems. Well, if we have, and by the way, this is exactly why I have these things here. If it's a RHEL 8 server and set of servers, I'm hardening them with this. If they're RHEL 9, I'm hardening them with this. If they're devices for layer 2 or layer 3, I'm hardening them with those. MariaDB is very big because that's the back end. Well, there's two types of backends, but that's the back end for Slurm. So when I'm running Slurm as a job scheduler, job resource scheduler inside of a cluster, MariaDB is what I use. But anyways, over here, I'm hardening the box. Don't worry about all that stuff. There's some stuff to read and some other good stuff here, but on my checklist, I've got two things down here. I've got finding details and comments. So the check text for this is to go into the MariaDB and then to put in this value here. So for each user, right, it's going to loop over, it's going to select users from max user, and it's going to get max user connections from MySQL.user, which is a table that's built in. And these are the max user connections, 0, 0, and 0. Well, I don't know what that means. So I'm useless. I don't even know what that means. But if I read over here, it says, if any users have more connections configured than documented, this is a finding. A value of 0 indicates unlimited and is a finding. I've got a bad system. Like I told you guys, stuff coming out of the box is almost always going to be unconfigured for security. And it's because security limits down productivity. Therefore, I mean, who would ever want to limit how many times root could connect in? Well, kind of makes sense that maybe we don't want root to ever connect in at all, but for the first setup, that's fine. How do we fix it? It says to limit the number of connections, allow a specific user as a user with appropriate privileges run the following commands. It says grant usage to this with max user connections. That's going to be a value we put in. That's going to be the variable name rather, and then the number of connections. So I could take this and try to just drop this in here, but watch, this is gonna break. This isn't gonna work. There's a reason this isn't gonna work. Bullshit. What we need to do is actually give the name right there. So Maria db.sys, and then the max user connections that we want to allow is actually a number. Let's say 1. It might be at local. Hold on. Localhost. What? Mac user connections 1. What am I doing here? That should be right. I need to put the at in because I'm dumb. All right. So now, if we go and we re-look at it, yeah, I haven't done this in a while. If you guys can't tell, now I've set that user. So now I go here and I go change root. You guys can probably see what I'm doing. The pattern, root, MySQL. Can't write it in a loop because we're actually in the system. But now we've adhered to this standard, and the way then we would report this out to our security team, right? Because what's security going to do? Are they going to tell me, hey, Scott, is everything good? And I'm like, trust me, bro. You guys ever heard that online where people are like, source, trust me, bro? You got to source your material out here, right? When you're doing security that's going to affect the company and like affect real dollars and real government projects and these, if you ever work in the government space, there's always these guys called ISSOs. Companies have them too, but they're information system security officers. They're ISSOs. And you will never interact with a single one of them in your lifetime, guys. This is like watching the gorillas. You will never in your lifetime interact with one of these people where they will not send you emails that say CISSP after their name. Never once. I've worked with hundreds of them. Every single one of them has CISSP in their title. And I'm like, that's cool. I got a CISSP over there in my stack of certs too, but it's not on my freaking title. Anyways, but I digress. The point, the point is, in this system we're using, this is my finding. This is the state in which I find the system as I turn it over to production. So my finding details are right here. And then my comments are this system is in compliance for users and allowed users and number of, you may try to make it sound security like, and number of user connections. And then I would come up here and I would right click this and I would say not a finding. And once it's not a finding, it'll turn green and it'll count against my STIG score down here, where our goal is to get this STIG score as close to 100 as we can. Different systems that you guys work in are going to have different standards for where that STIG score is going to try to go. But I just got 0.9 out of 100. I just got 0.9 of the way there. Almost 1% of the way there. And then we would keep going through this, right? We would go down. So that's one that I ask you to check. And I say specifically, what's the problem? User connections into the system have to be limited. We don't want an unlimited number of user connections. One, the system is not an infinite system, so it can't handle an unlimited amount. All we did there was say, well, look, you've got a theoretical upper limit anyways, so why don't I just artificially set it before that? And that sounds safe. That's probably a good idea. If your vehicle is going to for sure flip over at 125 miles an hour, there's no problem with maybe saying, well, we won't go over 95. I was talking to my brother. He took my truck up to Idaho a month ago, and he was telling me, he's like, did you know there's like a throttle on your truck at like 97? I was like, yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought of it, but yeah. He goes, yeah, we couldn't get your truck over 97. I'm like, yeah, that thing could easily go faster than that, but that's as fast as the little limiter's going to do. You said it's cringe putting post-op. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's the very minimum to do for sure. So what's our fix here? Our fix was to correctly set the max user connections within... Guys, by the way, this is very, very important to understand here. This STIG, while it is a guideline, right? All STIGs are guidelines. It says that the requirement addresses concurrent sessions for a single user, but this is one of those ones that has wiggle room to it. You can't leave it at 0, guys. You cannot be unlimited. Just say, oh, fucking however many people want to connect to the server can connect. That's not acceptable. Not professional, not acceptable, not security minded. But if your organization says 5 or 15, what's right? Or 3, what's right? And the answer is, what do you have in your security documentation? Because that's the next thing people are going to go to. And they're going to go, well, what's the security posture of your organization? Oh, so you have other mitigating STIGs that say you only allow local connections on this database. Nobody else can ever connect except a local process. Okay, that's a good enough mitigation. But you have to write that up and you have to define that. You can't... Security in a lot of ways. You guys ever seen like a... You guys know what Fog of War is? Fog of War is like... It's shown well in like an old game called Game Boy... Advance Wars, or any of these games where there's the things you can see, and then once your guys move away, you can't see them anymore. You still know the terrain, but you don't know what units are there. Well, it's the same idea. Like, security is kind of, in some ways, it's the process of shedding light on everything in your system. There should be nothing about your system that can be attacked that isn't known. Let's think of it like that, I guess. DCI Bank said, remember, have to debate with network architect contractor who had built the most cookie cutter network design. I wouldn't have worked. And when I was calling out the issues with these, started listing all the Cisco certs he had. Yeah. Certs in and of themselves really just show that you've spent time with a body of knowledge. They don't, in my mind, ever show that you really know how something goes together, right? But they are a nice little baseline for people. And I'll tell you, you'll never deal with an ISSO in the government that doesn't have a CISSP. Those guys always have it. And it's always in their signature, so I always like it. To Brett said, what is the risk of allowing a high number of authenticated connections? I imagine it's just to use more memory, might cause a server to... Yeah, so to Brett, this is... I don't want to say this is arbitrary, but this is one of those ones where it's like, you just got to make sure that it's whatever your posture is. Yeah. But here's the thing. Like, let's say I knew this server could handle 15 root connections all doing admin stuff. The next thing a security guy is going to ask you, and the reason we anticipate what a security person is going to ask you is, one, you're probably going to have to adhere to it anyways, so that's one. And two, they're probably right, even if you don't like it, right? And what I mean by that is, like, I would set it to 15 because I know my server can handle it, but then they're going to go, you only have 3 Linux you only have 3, like, database admins here. Why do you need that higher than 3 ever? Are they allowed to have more than one connection? No, we've got a strict policy that no database guy is ever in more than one database at any time. And they're like, so why is that number ever higher than 3? And then you're like, oh shit, you got me. You got me in front of everybody in a meeting, and you just feel like you were shot in the heart by this fucking CISSP, right? No, I'm just kidding. But the point is, and guys, I tell people, like, I try not to be adversarial about this stuff with my security teams, even though I kind of sound like it when I'm joking. They have other insight than you do. Like me, I want to build the biggest, fastest, strongest Linux servers I can. In some ways, and as I always say, productivity is the enemy of security. In some ways, for me, security be damned. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek because I also am somewhat security-minded. But my point is, there's a give and take here. And sometimes other people are going to ask questions that you never thought about. So it's good to understand the 5 meet. Yeah, you lose meeting points, and then you got to go sulk back to your little Linux cave. And Zorgal, I'm a big fan of STIGs, not because it doesn't even matter if I respect this process or not of STIGs. This has been a great way for me in my career to understand that I can give STIGs and shoot them over the wall and go about my day and never worry about security again. Now, not that I don't worry about security operationally, I'm just saying it used to be that you'd be frustrated with security teams because they would always just come and give you bullshit and ask you bullshit and this and this and this. Now, at least with STIGs, if you understand the wave, you can ride on top of the wave rather than getting just, crushed under the wave. Yeah. Yeah, security enable. I do like that idea of like being a security enabler because yeah, like security wins almost all the time, guys. When they talk to management and they're like little, what is it, Grima Wormtongue or whatever his name is, that's talking to the king from Rohan in the Lord of the Rings, they always win, guys. So you might as well freaking figure out how to work with them. All right. I'm being a little cheeky about that, but we can come in here. What's the fix? Well, the fix is to set the things within whatever our guidelines are. And it says, here's the fun one. What type of control is being implemented? Now, we'll wait a second. We'll wait for ads to finish up. People are on ads. We'll wait. Also, is my... Yeah. We'll wait for ads to finish over on the Twitch side. For people looking at this, the book on the right here, right up above me, that's free. You can download it, or it's right on the internet. It's just our guys published a book of our security engineering course. So shows you how to do all this stuff. Yeah, what type of control? So here's the thing. What type of control is being implemented here? And to answer that, we might have to go look at my talk on this. So let me go look at my presentation talk. Nope, wrong course. Security engineering. Let's go to just unit 1 real quick. And we'll just pull up my little PowerPoint on it. And these are the types of controls that we deal with in the world, right? These are the types of controls that exist out there. And again, the question here is, what type of control is being implemented? If we are locking down the number of users that can come in, here's our categories of control: technical, managerial, operational, and physical. There's 4 of them. Managerial and operational used to be just administrative. So for people in different cert paths and study guides, I'm very much of the technical, administrative, and physical. Those are the ways that I remember doing it. And then the control types are they preventing things? Are they deterring things by making you go around them? Are they detective in that they don't really do anything but watch? Well, in this case, we are doing a technical control to limit access to the system. And it is a preventative control, right? It is preventing something from having user from having more than one connection or whatever, right? So what kind of experience an admin have in tasks like this? An admin won't be setting this up, but an admin may be validating that these things are correct. So an admin may be making sure that like somebody, because guys, once security standards are set and you push these servers out into an operational environment, people start poking on security all the time. People send in tickets and ask for permissions that they shouldn't have. This is why sudoers environments are so hard to maintain, is because people will be giving sudo permissions and this that they shouldn't, which is why I never give sudo permissions directly in sudo. I give them in etc sudoers.d with files that I push with Ansible, right? Which is a different topic, but it's very similar. But anyways, this is a technical preventative control from that perspective. So that's the answer here. And by the way, a quick thing on controls. We talked about this a little bit in the course, if you take the course. But by the way, the course is free. We just run it in Discord. And the next version of this course, which I'm kind of cleaning this up for, I plan on starting next month. So probably next early, let's say in a few weeks, you're going to start seeing the events pop up again. And then people that want to do the security engineering course with us can. But managerial and operational, this is an interesting thing because this deals with authority. I have to respect your authority to do these things. So if you have like a preventative control, but your preventative control is actually you asking me not to do stuff. Like if I had up here, right here, as you go, oh man, I did too many of them. Right here. When you got into this server and it said you're being sent over there, and if in the message of the day I said, and please don't install MariaDB. Please don't install MariaDB on the server. But you're root. I just installed MariaDB right there. So did it matter that there was an administrative or a managerial or a operational control there that said don't do it? It's against the SOP. It's against the procedure. SOP is standard operating procedure. It's against the policy to put MariaDB on any of these servers, but I just did it. You guys just watched me do it. So managerial and operational controls, even preventative ones, are only based on authority. And I have to respect your authority or it doesn't matter. Yeah. Yeah. We call those, yeah. Oh, you said it's direct. Yeah, you're right. That's directive. Yeah, it's directive because you're telling me not to do it. That's true. But even then, it's like I'm not going to listen. I have to. If I don't respect your authority, directive and managerial and operational controls don't matter. So I try to emphasize that you have to understand the types of controls you're putting in, or we're dealing with a different problem. All right. So anyway, so let's get back to this. Let's get back to what we're doing here. And then, is this set properly on your system? It is now, but it wasn't when we first got there. All right. All right, so connect to MariaDB locally. So we did MySQL. We're in there. And then we select the command in the Stigs fixed text session. So we already did all this, but we can select max user connections from user, and we will see the output like we expect. Okay. Now we got a broken one, but it says check and remediate 253677. So let's go here. 253677 right here. What does this one say? Oh, wonderful. Oh, I thought I was going to lock up again. It says MariaDB must by default shut down upon audit failure to include unavailability of space for more audit log records. So if this thing isn't working, it must shut itself down. That's a problem. And it says is critical when MariaDB is at risk of failing to process audit logs as required, and action is taken to mitigate the failure. Okay. What does it say that I need to do there? Man, we are having massive problems inside this thing right now. So check text says if the application owner has determined the need for systems availability outweighs the need for a complete audit trail, this is not applicable. So if you're on a system and they have determined, and again, this has to be documented, typically, this is really pissing me off. There we go. This thing's just having problems. Stig Viewer in general has some kind of memory issues. So we come down here and it's not applicable because maybe we've determined that this system being available to run outweighs the need for audit. And then if we were going to say that, that is the standard, we need to then here in the comments talk about where that's documented, because the security team is going to look at that and go, okay, show me. So you have to say why. Now, one of the nice things about not applicable is only when it says not applicable down here are you ever allowed to go here and say not applicable. Not applicable is like a push. It doesn't affect you positive or negative in your overall. Out of your 110, it doesn't count anymore. It's taken out of thing. So not applicable is this grayish or whatever it is. But then again, you do have to document. Documented in security doc, and then you would give whatever that exact security doc was that they can then go reference. Because if you don't do that, this is going to be. Here's the thing. Can I tell you guys, this is also true of like college professors, but this is true of security engineers for sure. You have to give them like the easiest path. And if they're just walking down this path through all 110 of these and they don't see anything wrong, they're just going to continue down the path. They're going to be like, all looks like it's in order here. But they get to one of these and they trip and they like start playing with the edge of something and they go, what the hell is this? Or like it's like a shark with blood in the water. They're going to tear your whole fucking doc apart. Same thing where I go with like being a college professor. If I look at a doc and it's pretty organized up front and they're answering my questions and stuff, I'm going to start skimming through it because I know that they know what they're doing, right? But if from the very beginning they're on what we call the struggle bus, then I'm going to dig in and I'm going to take every point that I need to make sure that you understand what's going on. And it's going to be the same thing with your security teams. Security teams largely like to just walk around and have their CISSP everywhere so that they know that everything works. But once they get, I'm telling you, one gig in your uniform, one little thing off, it's all on, man. It's all fair game now. All right. So anyway, me showing you that is let's go look real quick at what our questions are for this. What type of control is this, right? So can you remediate 2677? And it says, this one's interesting. What is the problem? The problem is a balance between your system continuing to audit or continuing to run. What happens when the eventuality of maybe system filling up on space? Now, you cannot say, there's no provision here in security world or in logic where you say, well, I'll just never run out of space. I'll track it. Guys, you'll run out of space. That's every system is finite. Every system runs out of time in a second. Every system runs out of the number of things it can do. So that is not a valid defense, let's say, right? You have to be able to defend what this is. So what is the fix? The fix is to show where you have whatever rules are in place or whatever documentation is in place to be able to follow it. What type of control is being implemented? All right, so what type of control is it that says that the system must shut down? If it shuts down on an audit failure, if that is a requirement, that is a technical control, right? Because it's something that happens. But is it really preventative at that point? No, it's probably some type of corrective or compensating control to something else. And we'd probably have to dig in on that. I'd probably say it's corrective because now it's doing something to correct a problem in the environment. We never want to trigger this, but we have to, like I said, shed light on everything that happens, right? Yeah, fail secure or fail open is exactly the terminology for sure. S1 said, do I have a reference of what a good doc is? Are you talking about like this type of doc? One of the nice things about this is self-documenting. So what we're doing right here and all the things I'm writing, they'll be kept in this checklist forever. So if I were to save this checklist and say Scott Prolog Lab Hammer 2 MariaDB deploy instance, I would know exactly what we had done on stream or otherwise for it, which is kind of nice. And then is this set properly on your system? That depends on if we have the security documentation. Currently, the system is not set to fail if it runs out of audit space. It's going to continue running. That's how this system's designed, right? But that's the discussion, and then that's a thing that you would go figure out and set on your system and figure out around that. Next one is 278. So let's go look at 278. We might as well just keep this open for a second. Here's 278 right here. Oh, and we called that one not applicable because we pretended we had the actual documentation. So here's 278. What is the problem? MariaDB must be configurable to overwrite audit log records oldest in the event of unavailability of space for more audit log. Okay, so this says that MariaDB has a fix for it, but it's going to do first in, first out. So it's going to erase the oldest stuff. Okay. This is going to be another one of those where you need to have this documented. And this may be part of the documentation from this one. This one says it must shut down. This one says, okay, you're not going to shut down, but you're going to overwrite the oldest one first. And by the way, you're either going to have something written by like the vendor or the open source team. By the way, you have to have a vendor that you can support for systems, especially government systems. So now the vendor has to assert that this is true. Otherwise, you have to test it. And how are you going to test it? Fill up all your shit? That doesn't make any sense, right? Not in this sense. Fixed text. Established process for accompanying tools for monitoring available disk space. So as long as we monitor available disk space, which is our SIEM and our other solutions in our environment, and I could say, okay, we do have monitoring for our network operations to do that. Down here, we can also set the server audit output type to syslog, so we're sending off to our syslog type server, right? I have labs that show you guys how syslog works and how syslog set up. In fact, we do it in week, I want to say it's week 7 or 8 we do logging. Anyways, it doesn't matter right now. But yeah, I show you guys how to do that. But it's also funny too, once you send logs to syslog, either locally on your machine, or if you send them actually to the other system because you have syslog set up correctly, all of the rest of these log actions, there's a bunch of log actions in this. Every other one becomes incorrect because you're like var, I think it's like var lib MariaDB or var whatever it is that MariaDB uses for its audit space is no longer used. It's now var log messages. because that's where syslog sends them unless you configure it to send them somewhere else. Well, where I'm going with that is once you set this one for syslog, it changes all the rest of these stigs around logs. So that's a good one to go. DC Banks said I'd pass. Well, I'd hope you'd pass my course. My course is designed to be passed. Anyway, so we come down here and 7.8. So what's the type of control being implemented? Probably the same one. This is going to be a technical, and let's see what our options are here. It's going to be technical, and it's going to be detective, right? Because it's just where we're sending our logs. It's just how things are set in the environment, right? Okay. 253734. So 253734. We'll pop down here. And it says MariaDB must disable network functions, ports, protocols, and services deemed by the organization to be non-secure. Now, that's another one of those. You have to have this documented, right? It's deemed by your organization. So we can throw this over here real quick, and we can do a little MariaDB command, which is show. It doesn't have to be uppercase like that, but show global variables like port. And then that shows that the port for this is 3306. And it says right here, to fix this, we can change it. We can also change where we're listening. But for me, I would come right here and I would take this as my evidence. And, well, you don't really need a control C there. And then my finding details would be here. And we would say this is the documented port for MariaDB in our organization. This is what we expect to use for that. Hey, Robodom, how's it going? We are just, I'm just making sure the labs are good for the security engineering course. That's all I'm doing right now. Yeah, Robodom, best part of waking up is Linux for sure. And also, Robodom, I'm going to probably restart this course in about a month from now for people that want to do it. So, all right. And then we come down here and I say reboot the lab machine. So if you were doing this, you would exit and we could continue going, right? Like that's just the basic things I made people do in week 1 of the security engineering course. It was pretty straightforward. Didn't take too much of your time, but it did hopefully kind of help you align with, man, this is a big elephant in the room. There's a lot to do here. In fact, I remember I was stigging for one of our customers and I was hanging out with you guys in Discord. This was a few months ago. I was maybe it was late last year or early this year maybe, and I was stigging. Sorry, thought I was gonna have a problem in my neighborhood for a second here. That's a long story, but anyway, so there's all the way up and down here. There's all of these stigs. And you could then go and find them. Where was I at? Oh, I was talking about, I was doing it with a customer. I was actually setting these up and stigging while I was sitting and talking with you guys. And I think it was right around when Enzo was moving. So I think it was earlier this year. And I spent like 6 hours while we were hanging out and chat. I was just doing these on the side for one of my customer projects. I wasn't showing it on screen or whatever, but we were just hanging out. And it took me like 6 hours to harden one of these all the way. So that was kind of a thing. All right, anyway, so that was lab 1. So lab 1. And then let's go to lab 2. And I don't actually have to reset this machine. I could reset the machine if I wanted to reconnect. You know what? Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do a full reboot. It'll kick me all the way out. I'll go to reconnect to the environment for fun, just to practice every time. Connect. Boom. Should give me what? That's not good. sh prolog at prolog.asuscom.com, and then all right, security engineering course, and it sent me to Hammer 3, so that's perfect. It sent me to a different one of the Hammer servers. As those are rebooting, by the way, too, we're also getting the Prometheus setup on them, the Prometheus and Node exporters, and Promtail. So all those things are getting set up on these as they reboot, so that's good. And then here's my setup, so I can kind of look at the server a little bit. sysctl -a, and then grep maybe for forward. And I didn't do the grep-i to do IPv6 or IPv4, but look, there's more IPv4 than there is IPv6, specifically around forwarding, and whether or not our system will forward packets out the interface or not. And that's going to be important if you want your device to ever function as a router. If you force these not to happen, then your system will not function like a router. And you might say, well, do I ever want my system to function like a router? Absolutely, sometimes you do. Not often in the enterprise, but for fun reasons and down in like dev labs and stuff. Yeah, sometimes you want to turn a Linux box into a router so that you can do other stuff in VLANs and secure stuff away. And there's all kinds of reasons to maybe do it for fun. If you want to, and so one example that I'll give you, because somebody will be like, well, what's one good example? Let's say you wanted to run Werewolf at work. And I've shown you guys that Werewolf absolutely locks down the whole environment that it's in. Well, if you go to run Werewolf on like your dev environment, let's say you have 1,000 node, 1,000 IP dev environment, and it's got its own DHCP off of one of the networks or whatever, and then you want to run Werewolf in there. Well, Werewolf is going to take that environment over. He's going to run his own DHCP. And at best, you're going to have 2 servers in there running DHCP. But at worst, it's just going to break everything. So what would be better is to have your own little network range, maybe get a VLAN assigned to some ports for you, or set a VLAN on like an ESXi machine that you can do whatever you want with. Then you work in there, and then you're like, well, I want to move data in and out of there. I want to be able to do some stuff in my Werewolf cluster, and then you build your own little device to be a router. And look, admins, test lab, because you might say, well, that starts to sound like it's like a one-off. Yeah, but when we're deving stuff, when you're developing stuff, that's a little more acceptable from like an engineering standpoint. Hey, I need this build environment before I take things prod. You can get that approved by people. You can get that one-off from the business, right? Typically. So, yeah, Robodom. I have stuff running in my home lab that's routers. Yeah, you've seen that. Where's that at? I don't know where I have it. Yeah. This little guy. cRouter. cRouter sits between my 192.168.11 network and my 192.168.200 network, and he functions as the go-between for all traffic in my environment. Yeah, this Hammer box just went through there. That connection in went through there, even though it originally came from the outside and came through a proxy and then got jailed. He still had to go through cRouter. It logically flows through cRouter. I didn't draw it as actually going through cRouter, but logically it has to pass through there. Well, physically it has to go through there too. But my point is, in the logical drawing, I didn't include him. But all right. Anyways, let's get back to. We do want to see that, but we want this one. We want this course. So we're looking through here, and maybe we cat proc CMD line. We look at how the system booted. We do SE status, and we see if we're in SE Linux enabled mode or permissive mode. We're in disabled, so that's fine. Maybe we do FIPS mode setup check, and we see that we're not in FIPS mode. FIPS is Federal Information Processing Standard, and there's certain levels of cryptography that have to be adhered to, and certain levels of like hashing that have to be adhered to in your communications, and we don't have that turned on. We can cat SE Linux config, and there's nothing. Oh, whoops. Maybe we don't have anything in there. But either way, we have that turned off, so we know that that's not even on right now. So it says that can you verify the SE Linux status? That's off. Can you verify FIPS status? Also off. But could we test it? Yeah, we could. Now I say go get the STIG viewer if you don't already have it. Make sure you've got the RHEL 9 benchmarks. And then I want you to open up the RHEL 9 lab for this. And we're going to do some networking service stuff. And we're going to filter for IPv4. And we're going to see how many rules there are. Okay? So we come over here. I'm going to leave this checklist. Or I can just close this checklist. This was from the last lab. I don't care. And I go down here to the Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9. Create a checklist from it. And then I come down here to filter. and I'm going to filter by IPv4. And it says that I've got 1 out of 15, which is what I expect right there. Okay. And I say examine STIG 257957. So 257957. What is this doing? Rel 9 must be configured to use TCP SYN cookies. Okay. Why? Well, because denial of service is a condition where a resource is not available because other people are being assholes. When this occurs, the organization either cannot accomplish its mission or must operate at degraded capacity. That's true, right? So managing excess capacity ensures that sufficient capacity is available to counter flooding attacks. So it says right here, sysctl net IPv4 TCP SYN cookies should be set to 1. If they're not set to 1, right? If it's not equal to 1, then this is a finding. So let's go see first, before we even try to change anything, how is that set on our server? So sysctl -a grep, and let's look for SYN cookies. And there it is. SYN cookies is set to 1, right? Check that the configuration is parameter set. And if I were to come here right now, I would go and I would say that that is a pass. The system is set correctly, and I would right click and call this not a finding, and it would count in these particular STIGs that I'm looking at right now. It would count as not a finding, right? So that's pretty good. That's a big chunk of this. It's not a big chunk of the overall. Like if I remove all filters, then that's a very small. It's only 1 out of 451. Ugh. But it's also one of those ones that would probably have been found with a routine scan. We talk about scanning these, so we don't have to. Whoops. We talk about scanning, so we don't have to do them all by hand. Because again, 452 of those, it's going to take you all day to get through them all. And that's just for one server, let alone if you had like 30 servers to do this on. Now, I work in a tool called Werewolf. This stuff's all done in Werewolf. All I have to do is harden the image. Once I stand a server up and I know that all the other servers are going to fall in the exact same configuration, then I only have to turn in one of these. And then I say this one is for 300 servers, and they go, okay. As long as they see that it's built properly. That being said, some standards and some, but depending on your ISSO, your Information System Security Officer, some of them have a standard where they go, I want to see 10% of it. And you're like, oh. So then you're just duplicating these checklists. No, you can't do that because the checklist has the names all over in it, right? It says what server you're on. And then in the logs, it does the same thing. So you do have to go get that information. But for me, I gather that all with Ansible, and then I just throw them all in there, and it makes it real easy. So, or it makes it easier. It's still work. Still all work. All right, what's the next one? This next one says, okay, so what's the problem? Well, we got to make sure that our system is protected from, so what's the problem? Need to make sure that SYN cookies is on, because when that's on, it protects your system from DDoS flooding attacks, right? Too many half-open embryonic TCP connections, right? That's what it's talking about here. So what type of control is being implemented? It is a technical preventative control to stop something from happening, right? And then is it properly set on your system? Yes. And right here I show with the old Hammer 22 that it was set correctly. Could you remediate this finding? Well, if I needed to, I would go ahead and set that value somewhere. And I don't need to, so it's fine. In this case, it's already set, but then we would set it, if we were going to set it, we could go set it in a file, etsy-sysctl.d. You can actually name this file whatever you want, but in my case, I did 00remediate.conf, and then that file has all of those things in it. Yep. Okay. Now, 257958. 257958. So that's this one here. And this one also, okay, so this one is source routed packets. So this one is, are we going to allow, so here's our discussion. Wait, 257958. All right, we're on 257958 right here. And it says ICMP must ignore redirect messages. So ICMP redirect messages are used by routers to inform hosts that there is a more direct route to exist for a particular location. We're not going to take that. Not on the system level. We might accept that on like a router. Sure. Routers are going to accept all kinds of other messages, and there's all the routing protocols and all that kind of stuff, but we're not doing that with our servers. Our servers take the paths that we give them, go to the devices, and then those things handle it from there. So RHEL 9 will not accept IPv4 ICMP redirect messages. That's fine. So now I come over here and I say, can I do that? So I say system sysctl -a grep for accept redirects. Right? And it says here, we are accepting them. So, if I were just to leave this as it was, I would put this here. This would be my finding detail. And I would have to leave this as open. And that would not, that's generally accepted not to be great. This is a cat2, so it's also one that you can't leave open without some kind of comments or description of why it's open. Right? So I am going to say here that it's open, and then the question here then is, what's the problem? Well, does your system accept redirects? What's the fix? Well, I'd have to put it in a file to persistently boot up and not have that value set to 1, so we could fix it. What type of control is it? It's a technical preventative control, so it's technically stopping something from happening. Is it set properly on my system? Not currently, no. Right? And then how would I go about remediating this on my system? I would write a file. I would take the value that I wanted. Right? And then in here I would do like 00-remediate.conf, let's say. And in here I would drop that with the value that I wanted. Now, what I'm doing right here is a moot point. What do I mean by a moot point? It's a moo point. It's a cow's opinion, right? No, I'm just kidding. It's a moot point. And that means that it doesn't matter. Because me doing it on this server that's stateless, it doesn't matter that I just created that file. That file is going to be wiped when we reboot. But that being said, for right now, anyways, for Action, are we planning something for GPUs? Not right now, we're not. No, we're not doing GPUs yet. Not in our environment. Yeah, so a moot question, yeah, right. But a moot point is the fact that that's not going to change things in the long run. What I would really do is I would go set that in either an overlay for my system, or I would set that down in the actual image. I could go set that in the image. And then that would be persistent. And then I can have a whole bunch of them in there. And it would set those values for my config of my system. Because again, your system has all these things that can be configured about how the kernel operates in a running mode. You can set them right now by just dropping a new value in there. But what's better is to set that persistent in the future. And that's the security standard, is to make that persistent in the future. So, yeah, the question here then is that control fixed? Is it correct? No. We'd have to go and put it back in the image. Now I say check and remediate 257, 960, and 961. So here's 960. And it says, RHEL 9 must log IPv4 packets with impossible addresses. Those are called Martians. If you've got an impossible address, you shouldn't be in this network. You don't make any sense here. Spoof packets, source routed packets, redirects, that could be a sign of nefarious network activity, just basic problems happening, yes. And let's go look at how our system behaves around Martians. So we do sysctl-a, grep-i Martian, and our system, check the value. If the return line does not have a value of 1, or if it's commented out, this is a finding. So, not good. We got all zeros. So, check that the configurations files are present to enable this network parameter. So how would we set this if we wanted to log all Martians? We would take this. we can go set it in that same file where we did the other one. We can have all our remediations in one if we want. It really doesn't matter how we do that, right? As long as it's persistent. So if I did this now and then I didn't take this with me when this server reboots, this will be gone forever. So this isn't a great way for that. Nick Hill, there's not really a prereq for this course, doing the security engineering course. However, I will tell you there's nothing in the security engineering course that'll hold your hand. It just assumes that you're going to get in and do this stuff. Yeah, the security engineering course, the one that I'm doing right now, there's no real prereq. It's just there's no like slow walkthrough of like, hey, this is how you move around in a bash shell and this is your environment. Nope, it's just it goes, right? So to that end, I might tell you the Linux sysadmin course is better for people starting out, but there's no requirement. You don't have to do the security or Linux admin course in any order. You can do either of them. Private range, yeah. Lots of stuff going on. Okay, then we filter by firewalls. So now I just have them changed whole direction of these stigs, and we clear all the filters and we say firewall. What firewall? Oh my god, I can't believe how slow this is going. We'll add this filter in and let's see what happens. Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 of them. And what does it say for the stigs? What stigs appear to be trying to do? What type of controls are they? So if we look at the firewall, it says that it wants you to verify that the firewall is on. And it's on. Somebody could disable auditing and firewalls, and we don't want them to be able to do that. So we want to make sure that in Grubby, you always have the firewall starting. Okay, fair enough. That's one. Can't believe how slow this is going. You have to have firewall D installed. Malvi, I don't really do much with OpenShift. I studied a lot a few years back for Kubernetes, and then I never ended up working with it much. My younger brother runs OpenShift for a big insurance company, though. So I have a younger brother he's like the lead on OpenShift for a few thousand boxes. So he talks down on our Discord sometimes. So it's funny. Hold on. I failed you guys. I don't have StreamerBot on right now. Hold on. I'm turning StreamerBot on. I had it on earlier and I turned it off. Hold on. I do not know what's going on with my system. My whole system's going too slow. Let me check that again. Beginner should now at least do something. I for sure have. What's going on here, StreamerBot? Yeah, maybe I don't have. Shit, maybe I don't have anything set up. Maybe I don't have beginner as a command. Sorry. I have ! student. Pull up a chair. But firewall D and then rel. This is less beginnerish right here as far as our Linux stuff goes, but this is still, I would call this foundational. Make sure that the firewall's running. All right, I gotta close this app. I can't run it anymore. It's going too slow. All right, so let's go with systemctl status firewall D. Is firewall on there? Firewall D is not on this box. So that's actually something I need to put in my notes over here to fix and or to I did not know I didn't have firewall on these boxes. Oops, I did not know I didn't have firewall on. So let me get firewall back on here. Oh, jeez. Okay. It doesn't really matter. Let's go do it. I'm putting it back in the image right here. The image will come up. Oh, jeez. The image will come up when I do maintenance tomorrow. I'm doing maintenance tomorrow in the lab. So stuff that I'm adding into the image now will be there in the reboot of the systems. So that's kind of how Rocky has this containerized thing. So man is also not there. Oh, I can add man in. Yeah, we had added that after the last one. And what we're going to do, we're going to add this to... I'm going to probably use either Packer or Podman to build this. And when we pull down the next version, I'm going to add all these packages in directly with that. And because I want to pull down some other operating systems and build them, build the images in here. So, all right. So that was Rocky Linux. We need to do Hammer. All right. Let's go grab that, and then we'll get back to the course. But for people that haven't been here, so we could expose network ports and allow certain things to be exposed, and then we could make sure that they're if we are required to have a firewall on, which in a lot of systems we are, we need to ensure that we know how to allow ports through that firewall, because there are going to be acceptable things that do need to be allowed to talk with the system. Yeah, my Werewolf server, man. He's got 4 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM, so he's not like the slowest box on the planet, but he definitely can take his time sometimes to do stuff. We're gonna do an exec, and we're gonna go into Hammer, and we're gonna put this on the Hammer boxes. Come on, server. All right. Leave this one up for a second. Probably a good time for some people to take a break while this is building. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tell you guys to take a break because I've been talking for an hour and 13 minutes. So I'll put my little hourglass up, and I'll say take a break. We'll do 10 minutes, and I'll say take a break, and I'll finish building out this environment. Take a break, and I'll finish building out the environment. So start true, exit. I'm gonna walk around, take a little bit of a break too, but I need some water. So all right, keep working on stuff if you want, otherwise it's your time for a minute. Come back, we're gonna do the auto boxes, and then we'll continue on to the next part. Automation will be good because we need that firewall for some of the fittings. one's done. Let's go to the next one real quick. Still on break. Oh, shoot. Where am I at here? Yeah. There we go. There you go. Get those on there. Keep taking your break. 6 minutes, walk around. Alright, oh, that installed, good. Alright, so those have all been fixed. That will be present after so we have maintenance on Saturdays? Sundays. So if you guys don't know, right, we got Discord, and we got a bunch of events. Events are all free. We've got a Bash study group in about an hour. I'll probably go hang out down there too. But there's a Bash study group. You can go and get better at interacting with the shell if you struggle with that, and that's a thing people struggle with, so that's good to go do. Probably the gem of today is the interview prep. So for people that want to go and get ready for the person who's giving those sending grounds, he works specifically in Mang, which is Fang but light, MAANG, which is the he works in one of those big tech companies. He's been there about 8 years, and his talks are really good, but he's been doing interview prep with people. Yeah, Robodom. The one I hung out in the one last week, and it was really good. It was really good, and I think people got a lot out of it. He actually did like prep mock interviews with the guys. After he talked to them about like what it takes to get in the industry and stuff, then he walked them through the actual talks. So he gave people real stuff. I'm going to run the late night Bash study tonight, but then in the future I'm probably going to try to hand it off to somebody. But I just want something for people on the other side of the planet to be able to work on Bash, and that can't make it to this one. So we're going to have our late night one. You guys are welcome to come to both. They're free. You can do whatever you want. Our maintenance is this is really just a placeholder. People can come and hang out with me while I do the maintenance. I may even stream the maintenance while I'm rebooting servers and working on them and getting the environment up to where I want. We're testing the environment now, though, so we know it's working. It's just that we're adding components to it. And then at the end of the month, one of the professional pen testers that I know is going to come and talk to you guys. He has his OSCP and his G-Pen and his CISSP. We've been mentioning those. He is going to tell you about how he got in the industry, what he does, and how you can do what he does. So everybody thinks they want to be a pen tester, but maybe you come out and find out, I'll just be a Linux engineer for a bit. It depends on what you want to do, right? I've known him for 17 years now. He's been steadily growing his skills in the tech space the whole time I know him. And he was he's my first college student. He's in the first group of 4 college students I had. And he was in my first class I ever taught, which was structured cabling 113. I actually posted the book up in Discord the other day. If you go to reading, where's reading is fundamental? We're still on break, guys. But in my reading is fundamental, right here. That's the first college book I ever taught out of right there. Structured cabling 113. Taught a lot of structured cabling over the years. So, yeah. All right. You're still on you're still on break though if you guys want. Let's that's all built. Let's go back over here. All right. Firewall's down, but we can just install it out here. But again, this is non-persistent. It'll be persistent in the image on reboot now. So that's kind of a nice thing to know. All right. You guys are still on break. I'm going to go take a little walk for a second. Give me some more water and stuff, and I'll be back. Take your break if you want it, and then we're getting back into system stuff. Security engineering. All right. Man, Saturdays are for labs, apparently. People are here for the labs, so that's good. So I'll move this down a little bit. We are going through a free book that we have. You guys can hop in and, pretty much all the stuff in our Discord's free, right? But this is our Linux stuff. That's our security engineering course. That's the book that the guys put together. And I'm just making sure that our home lab environment that you guys have access to is working the same way as it used to. All right, we'll stop that. Timer's pretty much done. Systemctl status firewall D, it is dead. And then if we started it, right, we could do status again and see it running. We can see the main PID of it, the process ID. We can see how it's been kicked off. We can go see, one of my favorite commands is we can cat and actually see the service file for how this was started. So what does it need? What does it conflict with? Where's the manual for it? So we now have man firewall D, right? Nope, maybe we don't have manual for firewall. No. All right, well, we don't have manual pages for it, but is it? Yeah, we should, but why we don't see. Anyways, we don't have manual for it, but we should be able to do firewall CMD, right? So we've got the firewall command, and all this really does, all firewall CMD really does, is manage that firewall tool. And that firewall tool in Python, mind you see it up there that's being run in Python, is a wrapper around your NF tables. NF tables are the, they came from IP tables. IP tables were their predecessor, and then now NF tables are kind of the way that things work in our environment. And we can go in here and for, without getting too deep into all that stuff, we can go to how it works, so services. And maybe we just dump all the services. That's a lot of services. And maybe we grep -I for node. And you might say, Scott, you're going to get the same exact output here. That's true, but one of the nice things about grep is grep will try to find the thing for you in modern Linux, and it'll color it. So I can see here's some node port, and here's Prometheus node port exporter. And then I can go look at just that one service. So then I do ls in user lib firewall D. Here's all the service XML definitions. And if I grep in here for node, I'll see the XML definition for the node, and I should be able to then say Prometheus-node exporter, and then I can cat that if I want to, or I can even VI it. And then now that's the description. And XML, if you're not super familiar, surprisingly simple little language. You, as with all markup languages, you turn something on, you turn it off. You're not. It's not a scripting language, and it's not. It was before we really called things structured and semi-structured, but it's a semi-structured light language, let's say, in that you turn on a tag like XML, right, and then you also tend to turn it off at the end, but you don't have to because the whole definition is encoded as XML. But if you turn on a service, you turn off a service. And if you turn on short, you turn off short. Some of you might look at that and go, that looks a lot like HTML. You mean hypertext markup language? Yeah, that's how markup languages work. You turn on a description, you turn off a description. You cheat because you have multiple things you want to set under port, So in port, you do just the definition of you turn on and off, but then you set the protocol and the port in one same command. So there's ways to cheat it a little bit. Like if you want, I guess it's more of like a shorthand, but you could write this way, and you could also write port protocol and port, and then have those. But this makes a little more sense and is a little more readable, right? But anyway, so we have that, and then we can list our services, right? So firewall, CMD. I could type, geez. List services. And I can see what services are currently active on the firewall. Do I not have the zone? Apparently I don't have the default zone right here. I should be able to say default zone. Get active zone, I think. Yeah, so public has, so we're using public, and then you should be able to get all zones, or is it just all zones? It'd just be all zones. You can always go check them. Right, it'll show you all the zones right here, and I thought it was get all zones. Oh, it's just get zones. Here's get zones. So here's the zones that are there. And then I should be able to get active zones. Yeah, there it is. Here's our active zones. Right? So there's the active ones. And then if I wanted to list the zones, that's what we also want to see sometimes. So we just want to list. And now this list all. This would show me all zones, but the only zone that I know that's actually being used is this public one. And that makes sense because those are the services that I saw that were active, right? When I said get active list services, those are the services in the active zone. So you can kind of map this all across and look at this however you want. Unfortunately, most people just turn firewalls off in their environment, and that's not a good security posture according to the STIGs and just in general, right? You shouldn't just allow anything. One of the first things you'd have to do if you wanted to allow zero trust security to be prevalent or prevalent would be to you would set your firewall on, and then you would establish your TCP and TLS connections rather between your different devices, right? So things can only talk to what they're supposed to, which is the next level of zero trust security, right? All right, so anyway, so we can add that service in if we wanted to. We looked at that service, we can add that service in, right? And then we can reload the firewall. And then if we rerun the list services, we'll now see that Prometheus Node Exporter is one of the services that's being allowed. Then, if we allow, in our system here, if we allow the Prometheus Node Exporter to actually be exported out, if we actually turn that Prometheus Node Exporter on, it'll show up here. And I want to say that's port 9100. But if I need to go check, it's right here. Yeah, there it is right here. It's 9100. So that's the default port. Let's say I was going to run my Prometheus Node Exporter, and I was going to run it on port 9090 for some reason. We have a custom Prometheus Node Exporter that somebody sent us, right? And we're going to use that. Instead of setting this Prometheus Node Exporter here and turning it on that way, there's two things we could do. We could either modify this, but I would not advise modifying something that's defined as part of the base config like this. What I might do instead is this. Guys, I'll steal all day, right? Like, we'll copy that thing into another one, and this will be, our custom, right? Or maybe we even put the vendor's name in there or whatever the tool is. And then we turn on, we come back here, and we add that custom one. But after we've modified We're not going to do that yet. We would go and we would modify the value of it, right? So maybe I say VI that, and the port was 9090, let's say, right? And then the short description is custom, and then description could be the node exporter agent for provided by X company, right? So whatever this company was, whatever. And then now I would come here and I would add that custom one, right? And turn that on. And then when I go look at my list services, we would see, oh, I haven't reloaded yet, right? We got to reload. And then when we've reloaded and added that, it'll be there. There's our custom one. And then that port is now going to be exposed on the system. We should be able to, when we look at all the zones, we should be able to list all the zones. There's the services that are now default to that. Trying to think of the easy way to map that back to the IP addresses. There is a way to see that as the IP addresses, but I can't think of it right off. You may be able to, there's listing interfaces. List ports. No, maybe we don't have anything set for that. But anyways, the point is you should still be able to see that. Get zone of interface. Oh, anyways, it's in there somewhere. You can go look around for it, right? But then we did some automate STIG remediation. So for this one, this will be a fun one because this was something I was kind of talking about earlier. We'll CD back to root, and we can just make dir for STIGs, CD to our STIGs, and then I'm actually curious if this one's still up because they tend to, when they go to new versions, they don't allow, like the old versions don't work. So let's see if this actually works. Yep, and then we're gonna unzip it. We do have unzipped, so that's good. And then now we've got the the STIG for Ansible. So we're going to make a dir for Ansible, and we're going to copy that rel 9 STIG Ansible into Ansible, and then we'll cd down into Ansible, and then we'll unzip that guy here. So we're here. We see this, and we can now look at our site.yaml, our enforce.sh, which is not executable yet. You have to set that to be executable if you want. But then we can go down into roles, rel 9 STIG, and defaults, and we can, let's just use vim main.yaml. And now this is color-coded, which is one of the reasons you'd probably use vim for this. And now you can go and you can see what the settings are for these STIGs. So these are the rel 9 STIGs. And this first STIG, right here for you is 257783. Well, if we were to go look at our STIG viewer, I know our STIG viewer was messing up earlier, but we'll give it another shot. It's going to be a flashbang, so you're going to have to deal with it a little bit. But here's our STIG viewer. Here's rel 9, what we're looking at. And that one is 257783. So it's this one. And it says systemd journal must be enabled. In the event of a system failure, rel 9 must preserve any information. So systemd journal D must be active. And this thing says right here, systemd journal D enabled. Yes. And journal D start state started. So that's going to be your configuration settings for that if you wanted to automate this. Now, how does that actually get automated? Let's go look for the security rule. And then up, we'll go down into roles, and look in our rel stigs and in our tasks. Actually, yeah, maybe it is here. Let's grep that from main.yaml. All right, so this is where it's going to say name, stig rule, whatever, enabled, and it's going to give the name of that file. So what is the name that's in there? So enabled is going to be that value from enabled, which is yes. Is it started? State will be started. Yep. And let's say for some reason, I can't imagine one right now, but let's say for some reason your company does not run this. We have a different way of doing logging, and it's well defined, and we have a good documentation on it and whatever, and we are not going to use this tool. But you do still want to use this Stig Manager, and you still want to use this to manage and basically harden your environment. You could come in here and turn this to no and disabled, and nobody would care. Or this would be stopped, and this would be no, right? And then in here, it would be enabled no, and state would be stopped. And journal, and this systemd journal D would not run on your environment. Now again, I don't think that's something you should turn off, but you could do that because this is your configurable tool. It's a tool that's provided by DISA, right? The Defense, whatever, Information System, excuse me, agency. But you can't, yeah, but it doesn't mean that they just can do whatever they want on your systems. You still get to configure them. So you say that's a lot to configure. Yeah, but on the plus side, you only have to do it once in an environment, and then you can just run this against all your different nodes. So when you do automation stuff like this, this is a nice thing for that type of configuration. In fact, let me go look at something real quick. On that note, oh shoot, what's up? On that note, hold on. Okay, something to think about. Okay, examine the default values for stigs. Good. I think I'm gonna add, since I have this downloaded, right? Okay, we have u-rel9, whatever, stig. I'm going to copy u ansible.zip into labs. I thought okay, so lab is not. Lab work is not. It's interesting that it won't let me copy that there. It's an interesting behavior. Let's go look on the werewolf node. Both of those think they're read write. both mounted. It's weird that I wouldn't be able to write unless we have some other permission set. Yeah, I should have permission. It's like the whole reason to have that is to be able to mount that and write things up there. We can definitely pull things and read them out of there. But why can't we write them up? We're probably getting root squashed. But we need to we're gonna need to do on lab work. So root's definitely getting squashed. We want root to be able to write back up in there. And labs, well, labs are the same way, so. Yeah, lab work and labs, I guess technically not, but lab work for sure. Let's configure NFS. Let's do a umount on labs and umount on lab work, and then whoops, they're remounted, and then in lab work I should be able to copy where's my copy at? There we go. Should at least work now. Taking longer than it should. What's going on here? What's going on here, system? There it is. All right. I don't know why that took so. Well, I mean, network probably, but why did it take so long? All right. So then we can examine the STIGs. We did a bunch of the STIG stuff. We can create an Ansible OpenSCAP. So we cd to root, oops, ls, and we make dir for OpenSCAP, cd to OpenSCAP. And now on this one, we'll do dnf-y install. Well, I'm just gonna copy it. Too much to write. That'll install that stuff. And then down in our OpenSCAP, we're going to generate a fix file for type of Ansible and Bash. Those are going to be the two that we're going to do. So let's generate a fix file for a generic Linux box right here. Make sure that this still works. And this will make a draft DISA remediate.yaml. This is a different way to do the same remediations against those 452 STIGs, right? Okay. Vim draft DISA STIG. Here we go. Now I can use this to harden my systems. I can harden the boxes. Here's a bunch of variables at the top that I can set to determine how things are going to go. And then right off at the start, we're going to start doing tasks. We're going to ensure that crypto policies is there. And we can also do that individually for only certain tags. So if I say only low complexity things, so I give a tag dash dash tag dash or tag equals low underscore complexity, it'll only hit all of these tasks that have low complexity involved with them, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff with Ansible playbooks where you can do an Ansible playbook and then run this, and then you can say like list tags, and it'll just show you there's going to be a massive amount of all the tags that are available. So I could just say, like, if I only had to follow, let's just make something up here. If I only had to follow PCI DSS version 4 10.6 for this one server for one very specific reason, I could use that as a tag and it would only try to go hard in those things. So if I did Ansible playbook and then I said tag, right? Only that one. I'd probably put it in quotes like that. Oh, damn it. Localhost does not match all. Oh, I don't know why that didn't do PCI, but boom. And then we'll probably have to GG to go to the top. Hosts is all, which is localhost. So I may have to add like -i and then force it to run against like my local host or whatever. Implicit localhost. We'll modify the playbook right here. Host can be only run on localhost, sure. And then this would try to run. It's probably going to break, but it would try to run against my local machine. And the only thing that hit that tag for PCI DSS 4.10 or 4-10.6 is that Crony has to be there. Nothing else. But let's do it without them. Let's do it with no tags, so it's going to hit everything. This is going to fantastically break all over the place, but it's still fun to watch, right? So this would be like the start of maybe hardening a server. And those things where it's changed, those are actually things that got fixed on our system, right? And then when we go back later and do a rescan of the environment to get our new version, oh, and then it broke with this GNU utils. Couldn't get to whatever that Rocky SSL routines, whatever that is. So what is that? What was it? Maybe it can't install this for some reason. I don't know why it couldn't install it. Let's say that we installed it. And then it should be able to get past that, and then we can keep going in with our next piece. Oh, no, look at that. There it is. All right, so we do have some kind of thing wrong in our environment. For some reason, we can't install those, right? So then we would have to go, right, this is that process of, I always talk about like failing quickly. We'd go figure out what's holding that up, what's keeping that from working, why it won't build here or why it won't build in the original image, and then we'll go from there. So, all right. But generally speaking, oh, we can also do a script. So here's the OpenSCAP, here's the script generation for Bash. So if you want to get some good ideas on how to do some Bash remediation of servers, this is how OSCAP does your draft remediation of this. So if I do a vim on draft dash d, now we've got the YAML and now we got the sh for the shell, and now this is the shell version of how to do all those same fixes. So if you were going to do fix 2, which is to enable FIPS mode, this is how you could do it inside of Bash right here. It's going to generate a file. So look, it looks like it's if RPM quiet kernel and that. This is all inside of a file. It says then do end of F, add that. Yeah. This one also logs for you as well, which is kind of nice. Nice little setup. All right. Last thing it says to do in this lab environment, we've done a lot, right? If you're doing lab 2 with me, you're like, that's a lot of stuff we've done. We've worked on the network, we've hardened it, we've done all these things. We come down here and the last thing we do is we reboot that server. So we reboot the Hammer 3 and then we go to we would go to lab 3 now. I'm basically just powering through all the labs for us, right? And making sure that the things still work the way that we expect to. All right. So I'm going to jump back into the Prolog environment. You guys that know how to do that, it's in the Discord, how to jump into the Prolog environment. But you guys are welcome to do that. And let me grab this. I do not know why this is not working. Because when I type it, it works just fine. That works just fine. All right, security engineering course, it sent us to Hammer 2. So Hammer 3 is still down, so it's obviously not going to show up as one of our available nodes. And it says, just as like some pre-check type stuff, you might do ls-l on etc pam.d. And those are all the PAM modules in my system. Those are the things that interact with the etc shadow file in my system for my applications and users, so that, because they're not allowed to. And we can maybe cat out a file, etc pam.d sshd. This one's pretty big deal because this is how users actually log in, and then what's allowed, what's required, all this kind of things. So good. Lab warm-up tells us to go do a little bit and make sure you have the right tools and the right stuff. And the lab starts to talk about how many PAM configuration STIGs we have. So we can come here and we would go PAM. And it says that we've got 20 here. That's what I have down here. 17. So we're probably on either a newer or older version of this. Or is this for a different version? I'm not even 100% sure why that's different. But this one says that there's 17. And this one over here says that I've got 20 rules. So fair enough. Was it because it found spam as well? Shouldn't matter. But anyways, there's all the PAM mentions. Then we come down here and it says, all right, STIG is 257986. So 257986. 2579. Why don't I see that one? Am I filtering something else? Ah, 257986 right here. There it is. Rel 9 must enable pluggable authentication modules interface for SSHD. So in SSHD, if I grep for PAM from etc ssh sshd config, I should see that PAM is set to yes. Now, right here, it says that this is set to yes to enable PAM authentication. It says that using PAM no is not supported in RHEL and may cause several problems. But real quick here, if it's commented out to use PAM no, the default is that PAM should be use PAM yes. But that's not what this STIG says. This is a very important thing about STIGs. Guys, this is also a very important thing about dealing with security people in general. If it doesn't say it's not doing something, I know that's a double negative. If it doesn't say it's not doing something, is that the same thing as saying it does? Not to security, it's not. And also not to you logically, it's not, just so you know. But really, just so you know, you have to explicitly set this to yes. Right? So I would VI this file. PAM. Right? Where's PAM at? Here we go. And we would explicitly set this to use PAM yes. Right? And then now if I can say that, if I can go right here and find that and see that, then I can call this good in my checklist. So when I make a checklist from this, I would then, so go right here, checklist, create checklist, and then we're looking for Pam, and then we're looking for 86. I would be able to say, yes, this is configured correctly. Now, for the astute Linux admin, if I just set that like I did I actually set that in the server, or did I just set that for my configuration management and for my records? Is this actually taken effect yet? Never mind the fact that it was already active and whatever, but has this configuration taken place yet? The answer is no, not in the real world. You have to do systemctl restart sshd, right? And then once you've done that, and you can look at your configuration or your SSHD, and you see that it is now updated to right now, after you've done your config, then you know your configuration is set. But setting configs on a running service is not, it doesn't change anything. It would be the equivalent of like if I wrote a shopping list and my wife took it to the store because she likes to do shopping. I don't know why, but she likes it. And then I started just like writing snacky snacks on it. And I was like, I want all these snacks. And then she comes home later and goes, and I go, did you get all the snacks I wrote on the list? And she's like, what are you talking about? You gave me the list 2 hours ago and I was at the store and you started writing stuff on your copy of the list. It didn't change anything for me. Now, if I no-hup her, if I call her and say, hey, here's an updated version of the shared list, then she would be like, okay, it's got all those little snacks, right? No, but my point in saying that is this. It's very important to know the behavior of the systems you're on, and services do not go check their config files at any type of regular intervals. And that gives us a lot of power. We can modify that file, we can muck around with it, whatever we want, but only when we restart the service or what we call a hup of the process, because you'll find that a lot if you go into like Etsy, if you go to like log rotate, you'll see like your, whatever you're doing, it'll hup the system and restart it, right? It's like trip it and it comes back up. It doesn't even know, nothing's really lost, but now it's read the new version of the file. Or you have to do this because log files will be long and they'll be held open by a service until you rehup. When you read, like let's say you echo 0 into a file, but that file's all still being held in memory, you don't actually clear the memory out until you restart the service. You'll find this a lot in database work and when you're maintaining big file systems for users and stuff. You'll find that I echoed 0 into that. We wiped it. They agreed it was fine, but the system hasn't released the memory yet. That's because of some of the ways that these processes actually work, right? And you get into the habit of hupping or killing system processes and bringing them back up quickly, right? All right, that's neither here nor there. That's not really the purpose of this, but that's very important to know the behavior of like your services that you run, right? If you're trying to secure something, you need to know that what you've done has taken effect. Truth be told, if I was setting this on a server, that server's probably going to be rebooted 30 times before it ever gets to prod. It's probably going to be rebuilt through a CI/CD pipeline, sure. But the point is, for me to know that my thing is secure, I have to restart this at least once. By the way, that's also a thing that I like to do, is restart services after I muck around with them, because I need to make sure that things are correct. Next one is, can you remediate STIG 258055? What's the problem? What's the fix? So 258055. What is this one? Let's get this flashbang out of here. RHEL 9 must automatically lock the root account until the root account is released by administrator when 3 unsuccessful logins occur. All right, so we have to have a fail lock, even deny root, right? So how do we check that? How do we figure that out? Well, there's an auth select tool that'll enable that feature and put it down in it. You can actually go watch it, edit your PAM files if you want. But let's go, we can Etsy security faillock.conf by uncommenting that line. This would also fix it. So vi Etsy security faillock. And it was even deny root. even deny root. So we can lock root if we want, escape :WQ, and then now the pluggable authentication modules, there's nothing to restart, so that is active immediately, right, in our system, but that's kind of good to know. What's the problem? The problem is that root can't lock. What's the fix? Allow root to lock. What type of control is being implemented? If we go back to our controls from earlier, this is a technical, right, because it's not a physical control. I'm not physically stopping anybody like with my actual hand, no. Technically, I'm stopping you, though, yes. And it's a technical preventative control, right? It prevents the system from allowing root to just keep logging in forever, right? It's not managerial or operational because it's not me directing you to do anything. And it's none of these other controls because those are doing other things, right? So, even deny root, boom, we set it. Again, we're just setting this in Hammer 2, so none of these are persistent changes in the environment. But I kind of prefer that because then when you do these labs, they are busted, and you do have to fix them, right? How is this properly set? Well, you would go to VAR, or you would go to Etsy Security Fail Lock and fix it. Next one is remediate STIG 258098, so 258098. PAM password quality. Password quality has to have some value. So Etsy pam.d system auth has to have PAM password quality. So SW. It has to have password quality. Where's that at? Add the following line to Etsy pam.d system auth file or whatever. Password required pam pwquality.so. So password required. No, there's a PAM deny, but there is no PAM quality SO. So this would not pass, right? This would be a fail, and we would have to either add that line in there. So we would have to add this to the end of this here, put it right here. And then we would be able to say that password quality is enforced in our system, right? And then there's actually other STIGs that deal with what the password quality are. You have to have an upper, you have to have a lower, you have to have a special character, you have to have a number. So those are 4 character classes. You can't have any more than 3 of any repeating character class. So 3 lower cases in a row together can't be together. You can't have, oh, there's a whole bunch of them. They're all terrible, right? They're all a real hassle. You have to have at least a 14 length character, right? 14 characters in length. Starts getting real annoying. Okay. Filter by password complexity. Actually, here's all the password complexity ones right here. So you can type in password complexity in here, and you can look at, let's remove all filters. Password. Password complexity has 14. And here's all the different password complexities that you can find. There's a whole bunch of them, right? And what are they? Again, you have to have password quality set for any of these to even matter, right? That's the one that we were looking at. Let's go look at some of these other ones. Complexity has to be forced on the root account as well, not just other accounts. Password complexity, so you have to have a lowercase. There's your L credit, lowercase. You got to go set that in Etsy security passwordquality.conf, right? Then you have, so lowercase. You have to have a digit, it's D. These are terrible. It's like that stupid password game where you have to keep adding stuff, right? You have a minimum length of 15 characters now. I thought it was 14. It's 15. You need to have 1 of special characters or O credits. Then you have to have a digit. Oh, you can't be dictionary, so that's a dictionary check. Can't be a dictionary word. Uppercase credit, so you got to have an uppercase, at least 1 of each of those. And then total of 8 character when passwords are changed. So you have to have 8 of any one character, so that's terrible. And then this is the max that a class of any type can repeat is 4 times, and then it kicks it out. It kicks it out at 4, so it's interesting because I can't do more than 3 in a row of something. There it is. There's the max repeat of 3. Yeah. So you can't value max repeat. Can have maximum of 3 of the same consecutive characters. And then there's the minimum number of classes. You have to have all 4 of your classes in there, which is made by other specs as well, obviously. But all right. Anyways, how many STIGs do you see for SSSD? There's like 5 of them. SSD is how you give access to LDAP and these other things. So we get to our LDAP config. So this is the one where I make you guys actually configure LDAP on the system. I didn't realize that was in Lab 3. So you're going to build out an open LDAP server, and then you're going to connect to it with SSSD, even though it's just a fake inert server in your environment, and you're going to add 1 user to your system just to see how you would do it. So we stop the www client. Okay. We do that because the www client will modify your etc pass WD and break the lab, unless you did it in under 10 minutes, which probably isn't going to happen. That's VI our etc hosts, and for me on my server 2, so I'm on Hammer 2, I'm going to add 2 other values right at the end of my Hammer stuff, and it's ldap.prolog.lan and LDAP. So my system is going to resolve itself. If I were just to, like, I don't know, ping LDAP, it would resolve to myself. That's what this does in etc host, right? And once I have that, this is an example's Hammer 1, but we're going to do it here. We're going to set up config manager. I don't remember doing any of this, but probably the guys added this to the lab. DNF repo list. And now we have that, and we're going to add in this open LDAP stuff that we need. Maybe I thought I already had that set up, but all right. So we got that. Now, one of my favorites. Do we have slap D? Start slap D and ss-ntulp grep-i slap D. We're running it. Whatever that thing is doing, it's doing it. We can man slap D. Oh, there's no man for it. I thought, whatever. Surprised we don't have the man pages for it. Lizard Biscuit, how's it going? Yeah, we're just hanging out doing Saturday morning labs. I have noon. At noon, I got college students that I might have to work with for a little bit. I do huddle sessions with my college students, and I have about 60 college students this quarter. So if any of them want to hang out, like I set aside office hours, and then they can hop in there and they can talk with me and stuff. This course, Network 212, that I'm running right now is basically like Azure Cloud Fundamentals. So it's very simple security and cloud and kind of fun stuff like that. But I actually, it's a long story, but I really like doing the labs with the students. So I just do a bunch of labs and stuff with them typically. So I have a bunch of Azure labs that I run with them. But okay. We see whatever this slap D thing is doing, and we can go read about it and figure out what it's doing, right? If we didn't know, but we've got it started, and then we're going to allow LDAP through our firewall. And the service for firewall is LDAP and LDAP secure. Permanent. Oh, you know what? Hold on. This box hasn't come back up, so we could actually skip this step for now. But let's play the game the right way, and because in the actual lab they will have it. Because after maintenance tomorrow, all these boxes will have it. So let's do DNF-y install firewall D, because that'll be installed. It's installed in the image, so it'll be installed in the next time we run this. All right, so firewall permanent. There we go. Add service. Reload. List all. We expect to see those two there. Yep, there's our LDAP and our LDAP-S. All right, so now we're going to get a slapd password, and we're going to need to record this password, guys. Whatever else we're doing. Slappass WD. And that is going to give us some password. And I don't even say what I want you to do the password as, so I'm just going to make this like... there we go. And here's my password. I'm going to grab all this and throw this in a notepad. So if I were just doing this here... Oh, you know what? Maybe that's... It's probably because I don't have man on here either right now. That's probably part of the problem. Let me go see my man. Huh, still not there. All right, doesn't matter. So there's our slapd password. We have it in case we need to reference it. And it says down here, we're going to vi change root pass.ldiff, right? And this file is going to be place our old root password, which I want to say that's where we actually put, well, this is the old one. That's fine. And then let's run it. And it says that it modifies it. All right. And I could have sworn that we were supposed to put our password in there. So let's just for fun, just to make sure that I'm not messing anything up. Let's go down here. $, IO, and then come here. Let's just throw that password in there, just for fun. That's the password I think it's supposed to be. All right, good. So we'll say that that's set. Output's there. And we're going to generate some basic schemas, right? I don't remember doing all this, but that's fine. I feel like this was added by the guys, but that's fine. Maybe it wasn't. And then now we've got this file for set domain ldiff. And in here, we're going to change some information about our system. And do I have up here, here's our password. So we're setting our password yet again. So this is actually a place where you do need that password. Let's see, oh, whoops. Right here. There we go. Here's our password. Boom, copy, boom, paste. Good. All right. Escape, :WQ. And now if we run this, and we use our set domain diff, this should start up. Oh, I should not have done this in the environment I'm in, but whatever. Set domain.ldiff. Oh, there we go. All right. Looks like we've got a problem. Probably in my copy. Very possibly in the copy. entry 5. Oh, it is. That is the wrong. Maybe there's something wrong there. No, should be on the same line. There we go. All right, so that line 25. There we go. My bad. Okay, good. All right, so that's running now, and my copy and pasting aside, that's now working. And I originally set that up, and I've since forgot a lot of this. But basically, we're setting the values to what we want here for our LDAP hierarchies, right? Those are all the things that we're setting here. So that's all good. Authentication starting, all that stuff's fine. And then I should be able to come here and look at the naming contexts, if that's all right. There we go. So we see the naming context. And then, just for fun, I will add this. And by the way, I did also make these in their own file. So there's a file that has all these as well. Now those should all be on the right line. So then when I run this, that should be fine. Gosh, I wish I could. All right, I need to know my password. And then there's the values being added in. My password is 1234567 8. That's the dumbest password I can find, right? What happened? I'm missing some stuff. Sorry, guys. Missing chat. I'm missing chat. I should have my other thing open for... also, I don't know. I sometimes wonder why children run around on the internet and do the things they do, but I'm not going to worry about them for now. All right. We see everything configured. We see everything working the way that we want it to. Right? Boom. There we see Prolog LAN, and then we see some information about it. And we see people are in there in groups. We haven't added anybody yet. And we're going to add a user now. And the user is just going to be some test user. So we've already got the password. Oh, and now we can generate a password if we want. So another password. And this will be test user 1234. Test user 1234. Whoops. It would be helpful if they... Gosh. And then here we go here. All right. Oh, and, well, my mods are all sleeping. That's test user. And hold on real quick. Where's that at? Hold on. There we go. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. All right. Add user LDIF. So it's VI. Oops. We're going to add this user in. And then we're going to make in this user. But the user is going to have the password that we gave, right? It's not going to be the password that we just... That's not going to be this generic password. So $$ delete to the end. And let's add in our password that we stored over there off to the side just for the lab, right? Normally we wouldn't store passwords like this, but it's fine. Boom. There's that user's password that's been generated, right? That's such a weird thing. But all right, here, boom. And we come over here and we're going to add that user in. What? LDIF, if I spelled correctly. our LDAP password, which is 123456778, which gives us permission to add that user, and now that user has been added into our LDAP. So there's a lot of stuff that I don't explain here, and when we're just doing the lab, so we're not really explaining anything. But when I do the course, we talk a little bit more about where you'd go find out where these values are and that kind of stuff as well. Then we made a user for our LDAP, and now to tie it all back in, right? If it's all working, we can go and we can look for users in the system, right? And we should be able to see that there's this user. That's cool. And then now we can secure the system with open TLS. Oh, and actually, did I? No, these are already there, so this is good. We will generate these real quick. So here's our LDAP. Man. CRT. Yep. So we'll make that. We can add some information in here if we want. Country code, US, whatever. AZ, sure. Whatever we want in here. It doesn't really matter for this one too much. It'll still generate them. And then let's go ahead and make sure that those are readable by LDAP. So both of those that were created are going to be readable by LDAP. So that's all good, right? And then we'll go check them real quick, make sure that they're there and what we expect. Yes. One is never seen by anybody, very locked down, 600. The other one is shown to anybody that wants to see it, and that's 644. And then we're going to do our VI TLS diff. And again, it doesn't really matter where I do these, but they're going to use those certificate files that we just defined in our environment now, right? All right. Good. And we're going to add that in. And it's going to be part of our environment now. And then we got to fix one last little thing in our Etsy Open LDAP. We've got to go point. We're going to go add these two values right here. So I'm just going to drop them right here. These ones. Boom. And we shouldn't have anything else that we need to configure in there, so that's good. Escape WQ and system CTL restart slapd. All right. So now we've got a working LDAP system, and one of the things I really emphasized in the course when we were doing it, and when we start this course again next year or next month, I will emphasize this here. You will almost never in your career, 25-ish years of doing Linux for me, I've never built my own LDAP. Besides doing this lab right here, when I set this lab up. You say, well, why does that matter? Because our part is actually this next part where we configure it, where we connect into the LDAP. LDAP is almost always going to be controlled by some other system, some other place or whatever like that. Hold on real quick. I gotta go check something. Give me a second here. Wish there were timestamps in our messages, because I might be kicking somebody. All right. Anyways, but I'll let them lurk for now. Anyways, where were we at here? Let's get so our domain is working the way we want. We've got the things configured, but this stuff isn't normally in our wheelhouse on the security or the Linux or the system side of things. That tends to be something Active Directory and those kind of things. We let the Windows guys handle that crap. They do all the users and all that stuff in the organization. We sometimes have to connect into their systems and allow people to get into our stuff. So that's what's going on with this next part. So we restarted slapd, and now we're going to set up SSSD to join our LDAP that we just built. So DNF install, we got to add some tools. Auth select all the way over. Whoops. Get that installed. Then we're going to use auth select to allow SSSD to make home directories, sure. We could put -y on that, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. Builds character. will allow that to do that, and it'll go modify things inside of PAMD, which is fine. We're going to enable the new odd job service. Odd job just does a bunch of odd jobs, but it basically helps users get their stuff set up and their home directories and stuff built if they don't already exist. So we can see the status over here. Yeah, I actually set up free IPA in our lab, Abdo. But the thing is, the reason I did that was I thought it was a good little exercise for people to see some of the complexities of it. And then, yeah, the focus of the lab really was more this part down here, which is going to be allowing users into our Linux systems. But yeah, I mean, I get it. I probably could redo that part of the lab. On the plus side is kind of like a lift and replace. I can just pull stuff out and put it back in very modular, because it really doesn't matter what you connect into, as long as your SSSD is correct. And yeah, no, but I get what you're saying. That I probably should put. Let me go put that in my notes here, just in case. You know, that was our werewolf stuff yesterday, and then say. Right? Because, yeah, it's possible that people are going to do that. I've never had to build that myself. A lot of times, either users are completely centrally managed or completely managed by some other team. I tell you guys all the time, I try to stay out of the, what I call the IAM, Identity and Access Management space. I want other users and engineers involved in that space. I just want to give people access to our stuff. All right, so we've got that running. Let's VI our Etsy open LDAP, ldap.conf, and it says that I need to fix this line for our base stuff, and I don't want to fix that line by actually fixing it. I'm just going to hit O right here, whoops, and I'm just going to add it like this, because I think this is the easiest way to add it. Escape : WQ, and typically when you do that, you're going to need to restart slapd again. Right, so I'm going to restart that just for fun. And then let's go look at our Etsy SSSD.conf. Huh. I thought that file already existed. Apparently we've got to make that file. So we'll make it. We'll add all of these things for our domain and our environment. There we go. Our LDAP search base is that DC Prolog DC LAN that we were querying earlier with our one user. And then we got to make some value changes. chmod 0600 for Etsy, Etsy SSSD.conf. If your .conf file isn't only readable by root, that won't start SSSD. That's something I learned long ago. Systemctl start SSSD should start up. We should see a status of it. It's not broken all over the place. Cool. And then I should be able to, if that's all good, I should be able to ID test user and see that user in my system. That user was not there before. He's not, right? He's not in our passwd, but he does exist for our system when we do ID and other commands, because they're out looking, they're using SSSD to find that user. And then I don't think I actually make you log in with that user or anything like that, but we could try. Does it all work? Nope. Didn't all work, so we probably have to go work on Oddjob and see why Oddjob's not making his home directory. But it should make his home directory, and it should allow him, if we, let's try him again real quick. Now, couldn't go into his home user. That's a problem. That's an Oddjob thing. But does he have, like, what's his shell? It was he had bin bash assigned to him, obviously, because he wouldn't have had a shell otherwise. Let's just print env. He's got a normal environment. He's got a log. He's got the right home. So he's got the values that we expected for him. So yeah, that's fine. All right, reboot. When we're done with the lab, we reboot it. kills it all, and then that system will come back up clean, and we can call lab 3 for now good. I'm going through the labs for people that don't know. I rebuilt the home lab, the ProLug lab environment for everybody. It's how people normally get in and do stuff in our systems, and I rebuilt it last weekend. It's actually funny. Last weekend we were doing our big conference. I was working on it pretty much the whole time. But now I've been getting everything back in place for people to be able to use it. So now I'm just testing to make sure all the labs work. So labs 1, 2, and 3 back working. Next month, so in a month, we're going to start this course again. So people that want to do the security engineering course with us can do that. It's a free course. It's all you got to do is be down in our Discord. Abdo over on YouTube said it's a remote user. Is that correct? Yeah, well, so the user is authenticated remotely. Sure. Yeah. So he's not, he's not allowed in. Yeah, Robdom, I agree. The best price is free. But, you know, our stuff in general, our goal as a group is to get you guys doing this stuff professionally. By the way, real quick, we do have, is Bash Study Group already live? Oh, guys, I wanted to tell you, there's a bunch of events. Bash Study Group is live right now. For some reason, I didn't think it started till noon. So if anybody was like, hey, I want to see what's going on with the group and I want to see stuff, you could jump down the Discord and go get in that group right now. There's not always 75 people, but that's how many people want to be alerted so they can show up. They're working on Bash and writing scripts and just getting better at this interaction with Linux, right? Sending Grounds, I would not miss this one. This is in about 2.5 hours. And he does mock interviews, and he does interviews for Fang. So if you know what Fang, or what they call Mang now, he does interviews for them. I would not miss his stuff. His stuff's really good. I've got a late night Bash study group that I'm going to run tonight, and then I'm going to eventually hand that off to other people. But that's we're just going to go through Bash and work on Shell and all kinds of things like that. And then maintenance is tomorrow. So if you want to know when maintenance is happening, you don't even have to hop in there if you don't want. You can just know that maintenance is happening. And I will be down there working on the labs. And if anybody wants to see what I'm doing or whatever, I'll share my screen and we can work through stuff. And then we got a professional pen tester coming at the end of the month. He's somebody that I've known for about 17 years in the industry. So, all right. Lots of stuff going on. All right. Before I go into the next lab or set of labs, this next one is interesting. So this is what the next lab looks like for Lab 4, is when I got you guys into doing bastions and stuff. Bastion nodes are, they're near and dear to my heart. I've been doing them in my career for the last, I've probably been building bastions the last 10 years or so for projects and for government stuff. My company specifically, I get hired out for a lot of different things for my company, but one of the things that I'm specifically used for is building bastions for government projects. That's a very specific niche thing that I do. And then I show you guys how to build them because I think that they're not something that I think there's something you can understand and know how to secure your own systems. So we will build this. This will be actually in Killer Coda, which is a free site for you. So we won't be using the lab for this part. Yeah, Robodom, I appreciate you coming by. I appreciate you keeping an eye on chat for me as well. Even though people were... I don't know why people just pop in chat and want to get banned. Like, that's like a super weird thing to me, but I don't know. It's like everybody on the internet. There's a weird thing with engineers. Well, not even engineers. I would say like junior engineers and aspiring engineers. There's a weird thing to like just try to be the smartest guy in the room everywhere they go, and I don't get it. Like, I get it because I've seen engineers do it my whole career, but I don't get why they do it, right? Like, you don't have to be the smartest engineer in the room. All you have to do is be the person building stuff, right? So, S-Wine said, are the events on one big Discord call? Yeah, so what I do, here, I'll just go ahead and I'll just set a date now. Let me go look, hold on, let me look at September real quick. Let's say we start September 20th. That'll give me time to set things up. So I'll create an event, and it'll be in a stage channel just because we tend to have a lot of people. It'll be conferences and guest speakers, and this will be Security Engineering Course Round 2. So we've got Round 2 going. We will start that on the 20th of September, and it will be 3 p.m. my time. So 3 p.m. my time is the most convenient for me, so that's when I run it. It will repeat weekly on Saturdays, and it is Round 2, of the security engineering course that is found here. And the course is free, guys. The course is free. The lab book for it is free. And let me go grab this. This is the actual course syllabus. There we go. There we go. All right, there it is. You got me to go make it a real thing. So that's good. I don't know what that thing is, but hopefully grocery shop. Yeah, get some groceries, Robot. But yeah, this is so anyway. So I set it up. Yeah, I don't know why. I never liked it about security engineers either, where like every time they get in a room, they have to like butt heads for a while and pull them out and put them on the table to see whose is the biggest. It's like that's not really relevant to like solving problems and getting stuff working. But I don't know. People enjoy doing it for some reason. Oh, did this not? Oh, I'm not the right user. I was like, why didn't the system reboot? Oh, we're rebooting it. All right. And then we're going to jump back in on the Bastion. So I actually come into the system through a Bastion. So if you guys have never seen my Bastion process, you're, I don't know, I guess in for a treat. But this will be the next lab that we build out and the next thing that we do. We'll talk about jailing a user and walking through the process of building out a Bastion. So, all right. But before we do that, I'm going to take a break. We'll go wander around a little bit and maybe get another drink here. But, yeah, Agalord, just people showing up and just generally talking shit, and I'm not really a big fan of it. So I don't have like I have. There's people that are young in my life that have my patience, like my grandkids, but like adult children that show up and are like, doing RM-RF. I bet you don't know what that is. But never heard that joke before. Yeah, like get the fuck out of here. Go be an asshole somewhere else. You know. That's my thoughts on that. Take a break, and then lab 4. And like some people might be like, "Oh, that's not that big of a deal." It's not that big of a deal, but you know what? People can go fucking do that shit somewhere else. You know, people have all this valuable stuff that they could have learned, but instead they're gonna go be, I don't know, a turd nugget somewhere else, as far as I'm concerned. So, do whatever you want in life, but don't do it here. All right, I'm back. All right. Still got some time. Oh, S-Wine, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about somebody who wanted me to just remove everything in my system like I'm a fucking idiot that doesn't know what that command would do. It's like... Yeah, no, I wasn't talking about you. Talk about jerks. But again, that's those people that want to be smarter than everybody. Alright, so I'm eating leftovers for a minute. You guys are going to hear me doing that. Yeah, people are just retarded. I know you're not supposed to say that, but I don't care. It's an accurate term for people. VSync schizophrenic, no. My C router in my environment, he's using IP tables. So he sits over here. He's right here. He runs IP tables. Hard to see because you can't SSH into them. You can only go into them via console. I did that on purpose too because I don't want people to be able to configure them. Or any accidental changes by people on the network. You know, somebody manages to get in them somehow. Maybe I leave a key somewhere. No, the only way to get into him is through console. Directly from my XCP-NG. So that's another layer of abstraction to that box. But no, he doesn't run Firewall D. He runs IP tables. And he just forwards... Which is kind of weird that... I don't see his IP tables right now. But... yeah, all he does is just forward everything. I should be able to see... Yeah. He's forwarding everything everywhere. Yeah. He just sits there and he's basically got an IP he's got an IP address in or two interfaces, one on the 11 network at IP 60 and then on the other network on 200.1. So he just sits in there. Alright. We're gonna do lab 4 net. Whoops. Shit. Well, we'll start lab 4 in a minute. I'm gonna keep eating anyways, so. So here is the Bastion one. And some of you guys might note I'm just doing the labs right now. There is, for people that want the instruction, and you're like, well, what the hell are you guys doing? There's, in these labs, or in these sessions, there are my recordings on it. So you have my recordings, they're all on YouTube. But there's also more information and discussion posts, and you can go see what other people posted about these questions that were kind of designed to get you thinking about what these different pieces of this were. Digging deeper, or things for you to go work with and study more. But for now, we're just doing the labs. I'm just making sure the labs are still working, right? That's my main job right now. And I apologize. I'm also still eating. My wife made me some food before she left, so I'm eating food that the wife made. So give me a few more seconds. This is going to be our first lab here, creating a jail. And then the question is, how would you build a jail if you were trying to jail a user? Don't worry, I'll put my camera back on in a minute. I'm just stuffing, what is this, chicken and broccoli, and I guess there's carrots and potatoes too. So I'm eating those. I gotta check something real quick while I'm sitting here. I think that name's similar enough. Alright. That name is similar enough. Alright. Let me get the stuff out of the way here. We finish. Just it's like a few more bites. Yeah, that was right around the same time. Okay. That works for me. All right. 2 more bites. All right. So, this is busted. Let's see if that'll come back. All right. Looks like it's back. So, what is a jail? Well, there's a thing called switch root. I think we can man switch root. Maybe. For sure we can man ch root. And it'll tell us a little bit about running a command or an interactive shell with a special root directory. So we can treat a directory in Linux as though it were the root of our file system. Oh, that's funny. And then there's an ad as soon as I start talking. Well, all right, well, hold on a second. But the point is, I could right now take my system that thinks that that's the root of it, which is slash, right, the root of all file systems. And I can switch my root to be var chroot. And if I do that, the problem is there's no execution environment in there. So there's nothing for my system to attach to. There's nowhere for me to execute. And it's almost like there's like a hole in my OS where if I go and I try to process down in there as though that were going to be my root directory, I would need certain things to be able to operate. One of the things I'm going to need is a bash shell. My system looks for bash in bin bash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a bunch of directories down there. And if I cd to var chroot, I now see a bunch of directories. And if I'm going to pretend that this right here, right after the T, is the root of my file system, I have to have the ability to do things inside of there. So let's look at what's in there. Just all these directories, nothing going on. And let's copy bash in there now. And then if we were to just for fun let this be the chroot again of our system, this is going to break fantastically, but it's going to break for a different way. Or it's going to break for a different reason. I can't run bin bash, okay. But why can't it run bin bash? Well, we copied it in there. And then we tried to cd into, or we tried to chroot into var chroot and run bin bash, but it didn't work. Failed to run. Well, it fails to run because it needs a bunch of link libraries. And your bash or any system that you're running, any command you're running, if you want to know the libraries that it uses, bin bash, you can see what link libraries it wants to use. And in this case, it uses this Linux VDSO, which is kind of the standard one. And then it uses this one right here, which is libinfo. And then it uses this one, which is libc. And then it uses this LD Linux. So there's 3 ones that it uses, and then the standard one that we don't care so much about. Don't worry about that one. But I can copy those in, and we'll get the error on the first one, and we're fine with that. It even says right here, you can ignore that error. And then now if we do our chroot again, so we're going to check the process that we're in, 2038, and we're going to chroot into that jail environment, and we're going to check again, and we're going to see that we're in a new process. Okay. There's also other ways that I could see that I'm in a jailed environment. Watch this. I'm going to do ID. Command doesn't exist. I'm going to do curl. Doesn't exist. I'm going to try to ping Google. For so many reasons, that doesn't exist. But mainly, because of the environment that we've chrooted into, we don't have any way to reach out. We've kind of like dug a little hole in our operating system down in var chroot. And anything that gets dropped down in that hole and thinks that that's its root right there is only going to have bash. It's not going to have anything else. So I want you to think about this for a second. If we said that we're jailing users or jailing processes, I want you to think about this. If you took an actual person, guys, it's isolated from everything else, yes. If you took a person and I told you to jail that person, and what you did was you actually just dropped them in a person-sized hole in the ground and put something over the top of it, what would happen if you came back like a week later? Would you have been in the business of jailing a person, or would you have been in the business of just burying them until they died? You'd probably have killed that person, right? Well, I don't say that to be morbid. What I'm saying is this system, this shell that we're trying to chroot into and then run bash in, it doesn't have any other commands. It doesn't have any function. It doesn't have a dev null. It doesn't have any of the things it needs to operate as an actual shell, right? Oh, I turned my camera back on. It doesn't have any of the capabilities to do any of the things it needs to do. So it's hard down. It's hard useless. You basically just have bash inside of a hole in your system. And when you drop processes in there, they can't do anything. Or users in there, as we're going to get to with jails. So you're back, by the way. If I exit back out of there and I do this again, I'll see that I'm back on the original shell. Okay. So you can go read a little more about chroot, and I think there's some value in understanding what's going on inside of a chroot environment. And some people call them cheroots. I don't care what you call them, right? I call them chroots. Some people will call them cheroots. You'll hear all kinds of different things. But now we've exited out of it, and we should be able to ping Google out here. That's fine. But now we're going to move to the next part of the lab, and we're going to give some functionality to that, right? So you've set up a jail and verified that there's little or no functionality. It would be like if I dug a hole in the ground and I told you, hey, go look in the hole, and you'd be like, that's a hole. There's nothing in there. And we're going to start to give more and more functionality, and only the functionality we want to give to this user or process or whatever that we've jailed down in our system, okay? So we come over here and for file in, so we're going to give them some useful files. What useful files are we going to give them? We're going to give them passwd so they can know some stuff about themselves. They can know some stuff. That passwd is where your system references all usernames from, unless you're connected out to LDAP. The groups, so we can know group information. nsswitch.conf, so that we can determine how we're going to look at hosts and resolve DNS if we have DNS, if we're allowed. And then a host file. We copied those all in down into var chroot in the same directory, so now all those files are down here. If I do a pwd and ls-l, those files are all down here. Now they're not being synced in any way back to the original file system. They are just sitting down here, right? And that's the thing to think about. If things change up in your file system, you got to change them down in your jails. Well, if you want the jails to know about them. All right. And maybe I copy in all these binaries, and then I go up to bin, and here's bash, user bin, and then here's bash, curl, and SSH. Those are the three executables that I've put in here for this system to use. Now, we should see, I guess it doesn't really matter where they're at, but if we go do an LDD on user bin bash, we'll see the same thing that we saw earlier. And then we're going to do that same thing for on this lab for SSH. So these are all the packages that SSH needed. And by the way, if we needed to see all of them, we could just go like this. I say, I just want to see my LDD for SSH. I just want to see how many packages, how many link libraries does SSH need. That's a whole bunch of them. But I've copied all those in now, right? And they're actually all in. Yeah, lib64. Maybe they're all in lib. Yeah, they're all in here. Yeah, so here's all the libraries. And we'll do that same thing for curl. So we'll give curl the ability to do the things it needs to. And you keep seeing this weird stat error. That's fine. That one's not needed anyways. But now we've got all those files. We've got to make some things. So devnull is like his trash can, right? He needs to be able to throw crap away. TTY is his terminal so that he can have terminal sessions. 0, random, and urandom are all needed so that your processes can pull information, either zeros or entropy, off of the processor. Those things are needed. If you don't give those, they're basically special block devices. If you don't give those, or I think they're technically character devices. Character devices, you can pull individual characters. Block devices, you pull blocks, right? So those are all special character devices so that it can pull information off of the processor. Sure, we've given all that to the system. And then we're going to copy in just these NSS files. The NSS files are just a bunch of networking stuff that makes it easier. So if we CD up here, and we look at our environment, it's all the same things that we had. I don't normally use tree, but tree might be good to see this. because then you can kind of see how far down all the things that we added are. So we're going to add a whole environment. One of the nice things about once you get into building jails, you'll see how I built this jail. And then you're going to have other functionality you want to give your users in a jailed environment. And then you're going to say, okay, that's cool. I didn't realize how much stuff was given to me in a normal bash shell. And then I limit them down to only the things that I want to show people. And I'll find that there's a kind of like a little small subset of lost my train of thought. But anyways, there's a you are only giving them what you want, and it's very important that then you'll understand and appreciate all the things that your shell normally has. You'll also see all the bloat that's in the shell too, because there's a lot of stuff that you don't use in a shell. But real quick, so we did that, and if I just do tree here real quick, you'll see all the. Oops, I almost spilled my drink over here. Here's all the things we've added. We've given bin bash. We've given some devices that the system needs to use to interact with the actual underlying system. Etsy, group host, NSSwitch, and passwd, so we can find stuff. We didn't put anything in home yet, and we don't really need anything in home yet. But in my bastions, I always give homes, because then I can give you SSH keys that you own, and then you can use those to jump into different devices, right? Here's the libraries. Here's all the libraries that are needed for bash, SSH, and curl. That's all those libraries. And then we added these NSS libraries separately because they're just networking stuff. Help networking work. All right. And then there's user bin, bash, curl, and SSH as well. Okay, so you've set up your environment, and now we've got all the correct pieces in place, and we can add a user that's named jailed. We can give a password to jailed, and we'll just give them a password like 1234 5678. Sure. And then we'll chroot into var chroot, and then we'll see, can we curl google.com? Sure, we can curl down to Google. The only reason that was able to work for us to curl over to Google, and that's fine, we got over there. Even with the 302 error, we still managed to get there. And the only reason that worked is while we're in this user, we should be able to cat Etsy host, but we don't even have the cat command down here. we didn't give them cat, so they can't look at files. We might have no, we don't really have a way to look at the file, but we have Etsy hosts with Google defined, because we didn't give them DNS resolution, so they don't have any DNS resolution with a resolve file or anything. We could prove that with like no NS lookup, no way to do any resolution. But then we're going to exit the jail, and we're going to jail ourselves again. And from here, we're going to jump back into our own system as the jailed user. And it's weird, I named this user the jailed user, but he's not really jailed. We were going to eventually jail him, but he is now no longer in a jail. And so his name is kind of a misnomer because we jumped out of the jail with the jailed user. That's fine. You'll see this more in the next lab when we do this the right way. Are you still jailed? No. Exit out and see if your original user is still jailed. And then how do you exit that jail? This user is still jailed. Yes. Now we exit, and now we're back out of the jail, and we say that we're back to being a normal user. So it might look less than useful here, but consider this. How I normally use jails is like this. This is me sitting on my home lab system. I want to connect as Prolog user at prolog.asuscom.com, which is our external DNS that you can resolve to get to us, right? And then I get asked for a password, and I got to know that password, so I don't know it. And then when I get in here, I get dropped into this. I'm in a Bastion shell right now, so I'm in I'm in a Bastion. I'm in a jail. If I don't do anything here, it's going to kick me out. Just kick me out. But I don't want to be kicked out, so I'm going to go back in there. Man, I don't know why this thing has stopped working. But should work. Swear to God. Give me a second here, guys. I just don't want to keep typing the path. I could use a key, but I've been using it as my test. Alright, it's gonna work with my... It's weird. Super weird. Very possible I've just banned myself out of there, but that should not have... I don't know why the password, even when I... Oh, well, that one makes sense. There we go. All right, so anyways, I go to my security engineering course, but I'm locked in right now. And then I'm going to drop him over here. It's going to send me into my hammer system, right? So now I'm in my hammer box, and when I exit out, I don't go land back in that Bastion node, guys. I get kicked all the way out of this environment. Hold on, let's see. I don't know what the hell happened there. All right. Anyways, so now when I exit out, watch, I don't stop in my Bastion. I get zippered all the way out of the system. Connection to hammer, connection to Prolog Ace. I get kicked all the way out, right? I want to try this one more time because this is going to bug me. I know that password's good right there. All right, I got in. So security engineering or my automation course, right? If we go to the automation stuff. I just like those because they've got a cool little... We gave them a different login. Test them all the way through. Admin course gets dropped into the dev environment. Good. So we've got... And some people must be in there because we're all the way up to Rocky 4 as far as the nodes that are available. I do need to check that real quick then. How did we get all the way up to... Wow, Rocky 5's the last one left. So people must be using them, which is good. I mean, that's good. We got people using the labs. That's the goal. But I did not expect them all to be used up now. I've been using Hammer servers all day, but it looks like somebody's in Hammer 1 as well. So, all right. So let's go look at a Bastion. And real quick, I feel like I'll do this a little more justice by giving you guys the background on it. So give me 1 second to give you guys... I wasn't going to like do any of the lessons. I was just doing the labs. But I do think it's valuable for you to see the lesson real quick. So this is how a Bastion works, right? This is our questions for if I were to teach the whole thing, but it's like, what's an air gap system? How does it work? What are the benefits? How does that tie into the security controls that we know about? What's a Bastion system? How do we build them? And why do we build them and how? And then what's a jailed process and why do we jail and how do we jail? Okay, so those are the questions. And then how do all those topics relate? So air gap systems are a computer network or a single computer that's physically isolated from other networks. You can jump into a system and get into it and still be considered air gapped. You say, but no, I can get to it. Yeah, but you can't get to it directly. There's no TCP/IP connection over there. You have to come through another system, get stopped by a process, use that process to get in the rest of the way. And that's what that's what a jail inside of a Bastion node allows you to do. Okay. It won't completely isolate. We allow traffic in and out through ingress egress points that we define. We control how you get in and out of our system. Okay. Network boundary might look like this. You got a gateway switch somewhere out in the world. You come in, you hit some node, some front end system, and then that gets you into whatever back end networks. But the networks are physically separated away from the rest of the system. Okay. Air gap, there's a whole bunch of benefits and stuff. Bastions allow us to control that ingress egress point, and it looks kind of like this. You're going to connect via SSH. You're going to get dropped into a jailed environment. You got 10 seconds to go jump into another server or whatever. Control plane will go to node 01 as user 01, and then it'll jump back to control plane. And that's like because our lab only has 2 systems out on Killer Coda. So this is kind of our workflow for like how bastions work. All right. And then jailing, you can use namespaces and C groups, and chroot jail is what we're using for our stuff. It is not the only way to jail stuff. It is the way that I do it. There are other ways, and once you've built one jail, you can go figure out how to build the other jails, because you'll understand what you're trying to do, and you'll understand that you're only giving certain resources and things. But you can do it with Docker containers. You can have containers that only stand up when people log into boxes. That's a way to do it. You can do it with namespaces, which will limit down what you can see in the scope. Some people do sandboxing, or what we call sandbox environments. And then you can also use C groups to limit how much processes and memory people can both see and use. So you've got some functionality there. I use chroot jails because they work fine. They've been around since the 50s. They work pretty good. You say 50s? Yeah, even before Unix, right? They've been jailing stuff. All right, so let's build a jail and a bastion. This is the one that we just built. And then we're going to do this in the next lab. So the next lab is going to be much more pronounced. And one of the questions I ask here on the right is, what are the high-level steps of building a chroot jail? What would they be? Create the user or users to jail, create a line in there to jail them, set up the bastion shell for their home, create the jail, add in the directories you need, give them the executables you want to give them, copy over the link library files or library files for them, and then make the dev devices so that they can actually interact correctly with the thing. That may be a cheap and dirty, quick way to do it, right? Let me get this other stuff out of the way. So, what directories are needed? All the directories that the user might need to interact with. What executables might you give to the jailed user process? I only give them bin, bash, and curl. I don't even give them curl in our environment anymore. And then, what does that look like? You come into the environment, you get that shell, you get that thing only for as long as you need it. And then if I don't do anything in my 10 seconds, I get kicked out. If I type in, if I do anything else, I get kicked out, right? If I type in 4, I get exited. If I go like 2, I get sent over to my Hammer servers, which are our security ones, right? Why is that different? All right, don't care. Okay, so then we build a bastion, right? So here's the way that we actually build a real bastion node. I don't want to do it like that. Don't like that. Do I have another scenario up? I do have this scenario in the background. So we're going to get rid of this scenario. We're going to let this other one come up. If you do Killer Coda, you can only be in one scenario at a time. Even if they're your own scenarios, that happens. Might be even better to just close it for a second. And then again, it asks, if you were to write out the high-level steps of building a bastion host, what would they be? Very similar to our other one. When you jump into the bastion host, do you have any options other than the ones you've given yourself? The answer to that will be no. And then, did you test all 4 of the functional components of your jail? When we get there, we'll do that. Abdo, you said this is more complex. Yeah, security's not the easiest thing. But I think it's something that's very attainable for most people if they spend time with it. Apparently my other environment's not closing out as fast as we might have liked. We'll leave that up in the background. Digging Deeper Challenge, there's another one. I have a drawing out there that is in Excalidraw, and you can replace it if you want, right, by doing a pull request against my Building a Bastion host lab. Yeah, that's fine. If we wanted to look at how that looks in our home lab environment here, this is the actual process right here for our Bastion 02. You coming off the internet, off of the Prolug, you get jailed into var prolug ch root, so I've changed the pathing a little bit. You got a bin, a bash, and a curl. I didn't even think I gave you a curl, but apparently I do. Var prolug bin bastion.sh lets you go to admin labs, security labs, or automation labs, and they kick you over there. Now that file is being auto-generated every minute via Ansible. So Ansible is going, and it's generating. So if you hit 1, this is what the file actually looks like. Here's what it tells you. If you go to 1, you get sent to Rocky 4. Once Rocky 4 gets used up and the environment gets rebuilt in a minute, this Bastion file gets rebuilt, then only Rocky 5 will exist. And as people unload on the other lab devices, they will come to be free. And if people are using all 5, you get this. No capacity for admin labs found. Try back later. Same thing in the Hammer nodes. The 1 and 2 are being used right now. I was just in 2, so that makes sense. 3, 4, and 5 are free, so you'll get the first one that comes up. And then the next person that slots in there a minute later or more will get dropped in the next box, and the next box, and the next box. That's how this works. If you pick automation course, nobody's using the automation course yet, so all 5 of those servers' capacity are still there right now. If I need to add to any of this, it's simply just adding to the template. Well, actually, I don't even have to touch any of the Ansible. All I have to do is add more nodes into the Ansible host file, and then build the nodes out in Werewolf, which are super easy to do. Just copy nodes over, and then build them out in XCP-ng. Have a nice day kicks you out. You have not entered a valid input. That's anything else gets you kicked out. And if you wait 10 seconds, you get kicked out. That's what the 10 seconds are for right there. That's how our Bastion works. That's how I let people into the labs. That's it. Nothing special. Nothing you guys couldn't do if you wanted to. All right. See if our lab environment's up. Here it is. All right. So, this thing says right here. Let's open this image in a new tab. I like to show people this. You can always have an image in a new tab. And it says, here's your outside system. You're going to jump into a Bastion node and go you'll be the jailed user. And then from the jailed user, you will only be able to do certain things. And we will simulate an air gap by jumping back into control plane. But that's a simulated air gap, and you gotta be able to like close your eyes and think, okay, I'm kind of jumping into another node even though you're jumping back, right? You got to be able to play pretend a little bit, right? Like, remember when you were a kid and the floor was lava? I know you guys know how to pretend, right? So all you're doing is you're still doing all the real things like my lab. It's just that we only have 2 systems, so we're pretending. All right. So we come back over here. Your system is planning on building a Bastion system. You have tested functionality of a jail in the previous lab. That's what we just did. And now for this lab, you're going to simulate an air-gapped system connected to via a Bastion. That's what you're going to do. You're going to do the exact same thing that I did right here in the lab that you guys just saw me jump from. I went out to the world, jumped back into my own systems, and connected into my lab, right? Any of you guys that want access to that, it's all here in the where's the Discord at? It's in the Prolug lab environment here on the Discord. This is shows you how to get access. You can give me your public key, and if you give me your public key, it'll automatically let you log in. You don't have to put in a password. Okay? All right, there you go. So let's do this. Let's build a jail at node 01. So we're going to SSH to node 01. And we're going to build a jail over here so that we can jump into it and then pretend to jump further into our environment even though we're jumping back out. All right, so SSH node 01. make dir var chroot. That looks similar to what we did earlier. You can call that something else. You just have to get your pathing right. You're going to make a directory for all those directories in there. This is going to do, it's going to make it var chroot for bin, lib64, dev, etc, home, user bin, and then lib x86 underscore 64 dash linux dash GNU. Or GNU. I don't care how you say it. GNU is probably more correct. All right, and then we're going to go look. There's all of our directories. We're happy. We see 7 directories that we can populate. Now we can copy in bin bash if we want to, like we did earlier. And we can give all the package libraries for that right there as well. We can copy in the NSSwitch file and all of the different files we need out of etc. Cool. We can copy in all of the other binaries, so bash, SSH, and curl. We can look at the link libraries for bash, and then we can copy all the link libraries in. This is the same thing we just did, but now we've copied them all in. We're going to go make all of those special, they're actually technically character files, not block files. So we're going to go make all them. And then we're going to copy in our NSS files that are needed. All right. If we've done all that, we're going to jump out of node 01. Set up the environment, hit submit, and move on to the Bastion building portion. So it says we've set up a jail, and now it's time to put together the Bastion. We're going to create a user on node 01, and we're going to point them to that jail. We're going to use SSHD to point them towards that jail when they log into the server. Then we're going to create a user on control plane called free user, and we're going to create a Bastion script to lock in the actions of the jailed user and configure SSH. So let's do all that real quick. So on control plane, we're going to add in free user. We're going to give them a password. Password will be 1234567 1234567 Very, very secure. Then we're going to SSH to node 01, and we're going to make a jailed user, and we're going to give him a password of, sure, 1234567 All right. Then we're going to start to jail that user sessions. We're going to go into etc SSHD. We're going to hit Shift-G-O, and we're going to add, if you come in here, if you come looking at our SSHD, right, if you connect in, and you're using jailed user, I'm going to drop you down into var chroot. That's going to be your root directory. So we're forcing a chroot through SSHD as somebody comes into our system, right? Escape :WQ. And restart SSH, so that is taking effect. And now we're going to make a root bastion.sh file, and this file is going to be very simple. Let's look at it real quick for people that don't do too much bash. This is going to be, when you get dropped in there, this is going to be your home directory. This is going to be your executable environment. Bin bash. And it says read a number, and we're going to give them 20 seconds. I'm going to switch that down to 10 seconds because I'm lazy. I don't want to give them a whole 20 seconds. And then it says that you can do one of two things. You can connect to free plane or a control plane as free user, or you can exit. Those are your two options. You actually technically have two other options, guys. You can do nothing, or you could do everything else. Those are 4 options. So we've got 4 test cases. You can hit 1, you can hit 2, you can explode all over the keyboard, just mash keys as fast as you can. I know I said that wrong. Or you can wait 10 seconds and get kicked out. Those are your 4 options, right? That's going to be our 4 test cases. When we come down here, here's our first case. You're going to be sent over with user bin SSH to free user at control plane. So it'll send you further into the environment as it does in my lab, right? Sends you further in. 2, you choose to leave. 3, you lose your mind and you're asked to leave. And 4th, the platform just comes out from under you because you waited the time and you dropped out of the loop and you got exit. Everything's exit 0. Everything kicks you out. Once you leave the execution here of your SSH session and come back, you get kicked out. Everything kicks you. Everything's like a slide out the door. Everything's like a slide out the door, and you find yourself back on the front porch like, the hell? I just got kicked out of the whole place. That's what's gonna happen. V Schizophrenic, you can message me your public key. Yeah. The thing about public keys that's nice, and I know some people, obviously, you're like, it's a key, I don't want to show it to anybody. Public keys you can share far and wide. But yes, you can message them directly to me. I won't show them on stream if you don't want. big scheme of things, though, you can throw them in the town square. You can post them on a bulletin board in the middle of the internet. Yeah, sure, you don't, I guess, really want to do that, but an open key is free. Your private key never give to anybody, but your public key, yeah, you could go post that on a bulletin board. All right, and again, maybe you don't do that, but let's save that. So that's our root bastion. We're going to copy that in and make it executable down in the jail, right? Then we're going to make our etc pass WD, Shift G to the bottom. Shift G. I'm in here. And on jailed user, we're going to change his path. Right here, we're going to change his bin sh to bin bastion.sh. So he's only going to get, in his 7th field, bin bastion.sh. And then we're going to copy that down in there as well. Then we're going to exit from node 01. Hit check. Everything's good. Now we're going to test those 4... Sorry. We're going to test those 4 conditions real quick. That's only supposed to happen if somebody does ! Ask to me. It's because I was doing control characters that popped up. All right. Connect from control plane to node 01 as the jailed user. Verify our functionality. We have 4 things to test in our shell. And let's go ahead and do hostname. We're on control plane. Let's SSH to jailed user on node 01. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we did everything right, we're going to be allowed in via SSH. It's going to be like, come this way, my lord. And then it's going to drop me in a jail. It's like I'm going to walk in, I'm going to get dropped in a jail. I'm not going to have a full bash environment. I'm stuck in the bastion shell, and I'm already going to be in a loop. I have 10 seconds in that loop to do one of 4 things. I'm not going to do anything. I'm like Pingu. Right? Now I'm not doing it. You guys all know who Pingu is. He's that little penguin character that's like, now I'm not doing it. All right, I got kicked out. I did 10 seconds. 10 seconds were up. Booted. Or yeeted, or whatever they say nowadays, right? And, okay, so then let's do our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 again. And let's say that I'm going to just blow up with a bunch of different numbers. That kicked me out. So I've tested 2 of my use cases. 2 of the things that aren't great. 1 is don't do anything, get kicked out. 2 is just flip out and type 4, 5, 6, 7 a bunch and get kicked out. Now we're going to go try to connect. I don't have anything to like stop me from being able to log into this. Like I don't have any fail to ban or anything on here. We set those up in other labs. But now, and by the way, we're actually getting in correctly. Let's go exit. Does exit exit? Yeah, exit kicked me out. Good. And now our last use case. Do I actually get connected back to the other node? Let's say yes. Now I need to know that password because I didn't give myself a key. I messed that up. Well, we didn't do it in the lab. But that password is 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then ID. Who am I? Host name. I'm back, or I've jumped further past my system. Now, hold on. When I type exit, I'm going to get kicked out of control plane where I was, back to node 01. Node 01's got nothing for me. Kick the F out, right? All the way out. Now I can go to node 01 as root, and I don't get jailed. And I can go investigate the root. I can cat var ch root bin bastion, right? Like I can go see that's what was happening to the user as they dropped in there. I can see all that stuff. Oh, Colchis, nice. Thank you for that. Yeah. The script for the scenario of the troubleshoot lab. Nice. We'll have to add it probably directly right in that lab, lab 16 if we can. But for you guys that are doing this, we got this. Everything works. You did your ID, your host name, your exit, and then now we finish the lab. So look at you learning Linux security. You created a jail. That was from our other lab. You guys created a jail. Then you gave all this functionality to that jail. You gave the executables you wanted them to have, the link libraries you wanted them to have, the environment type stuff in Etsy that you wanted them to kind of be able to see their own user and that kind of stuff. You gave them you gave them a bunch of stuff, right? You gave them all this stuff that made them like more handy capable than handicapped, because dropping them in a hole killed them. Oh, you gave them all the block devices and character devices, right? So that they can do interactions with, because otherwise they can't do interactions with the kernel. They can't do interactions with anything, right? SSH doesn't work if you don't have dev urandom in the system. because it needs to be able to generate entropy, and if it can't, it just breaks. So there's all these things you had to do. You limited the user down and basically like dropped them. Has anybody here ever been in a data center? You guys know what a man trap is? That's the technical term for it. It's called a man trap. You guys ever seen a man trap? You walk in and they literally look like this. It's like the worst thing ever. Let's see if there's a good example of one here. Yeah, these are like the exact ones I walk into in one of my data centers. They close behind you. They validate who you are, or you've already used probably a thumbprint and other things. They make sure there's only one of you, and then they let you through. And then if you ever watched, like, I think it was like Total Recall, you can see the guns and stuff through the, under their waist. Or was that Running Man? I forget what movie that was. I think it might have been Running Man, where they had, like, as Arnold walked through it, like, scanned him. But anyways, that's like a man trap, right? You can think of a bastion, the way we're using it, as a pass-through bastion is kind of like a little jail for a user until they validate who they say they are, until we allow them to move into whatever nodes we want to let them do. So in our environment, we went from the outside system, node 01, we built a jail, we built a user, we locked that user down via SSH into only that jailed environment, and then we tested. We SSH'd in, we got dropped in a jail, couldn't do nothing, could only go where it wanted us to, which was to our simulated air gap as the unjailed user over in control plane. Those were our only options. We couldn't even choose to try to go in his route. We couldn't do anything. We only had one or two. If you pressed 3 or anything else, you got kicked. If you waited, you got kicked. If you tried to hack the system, you got kicked. And we just snickered the whole time, because even if you tried to drop some payload in there, there's no executables for you. So it's a funny little thing. We actually have an effort that I haven't worked on since last year called Dungeons. And the dungeons are just basically letting everybody in and then just tracking what they try to do, track what the bots try to do, track what people try to do, and then the environment just collapses on itself when it's done. We keep logs the whole time, right? We have logs of everything, guys. I track logs of everything that happens in our environment. But we could also then lock that all down and do that. All right. So that was building a bastion. That was lab 4. And our next lab will be lab 5. But I probably have to get off here. So we'll do repos and patching next. That'll be good. Because I do want to make sure that that one's set up right in our environment. And that one will be back to this. So I will be back here for this one. Right? And yeah, I'll be on the hammer boxes for those. But I will get that set up here. I got only a little bit of time. I got to go talk to my college students from like 12 to 1, see if anybody needs help or anything. And then I'll probably hop back on a little bit and do these last few labs or whatever. But I do appreciate people coming by. I mean, this stuff is all there for you guys to do up in the Discord. I have officially started, in case anybody missed this, I've officially said that the next running of our course will be right here. The next running of our course will officially start on September 20th at 3 p.m. That's my time, so you got to look at it in your time. But that's when we'll start Security Engineering Round 2. Expect this to be the same time that I do the automation course. I'll do the automation course at like 5 on those days. But expect it to be the same. Over the, like, there'll be an overlap. Like because I like to start the courses together, be on the same things with them. But the security engineering course I think went really well, and it's kind of quick. It's only 10 weeks. It's like 9 weeks of learning and then like a final project, right? So we'll go through it. You'll have the meetings with me where we talk through stuff, and then you'll also have the recordings where you can see when we first did it, and you can compare the ways that you guys log into this stuff or whatever. But those are free. I don't charge you nothing for them. And most of the guys that have done them, the guys that have done them and college, think that they're at least the level of like what most college courses they've done. And I would agree. I've taught more college than probably most anybody that anybody knows. 17 years now. Well, 17 years in December. But all right. And I'm hoping to get to 30 years, because if I can teach for 30 years, I will have taught at least, I will be up to about 10,000 college students I'll have taught, and that's a goal. That's a goal of mine. I have weird goals, but that's one of them. I don't count anybody online as part of that, but I mean, you know, if we counted those, there'd probably be a lot more, but or there would definitely be a lot more, but We don't count those. All right, let's call this here then. For anybody that wants to, go hang out down in the Discord. I'll give you guys that link. People on the YouTube side of things, you have it down in the description, but here it is as well. I'm not Eastern Standard Time. I'm on Pacific Time right now, actually. So that's a good question. For people that are EST, that is 6 o'clock for you. So, but by the way, guys, if you look at this in your Discord, it will be in your time zone. It's one of the nice things about Discord. People that want to participate in the course but are on the other side of planet Earth, you can join the course, meet when you can. You can do the discussions, but you can just watch the YouTube videos because I have all of it recorded already. And if you say, Scott, where's all the recordings so I could get started? Like, let's say you want to get started now. You go to the beginner start here. Here's the 2 course books that are free. And here's all the material for the sysadmin and the security engineering course. So all our stuff's up there. The only thing you don't get if you go through it by yourself is you don't get to interact with the other guys that are doing it and the other people and work with them. And you don't get to, we have a cool little certificate that we give out. And that we only give those out to people that sit through the course and do all the work. And we just finished a Linux admin course last week. So, although it looks like Colchis is writing some of the last little stuff, so that's kind of cool. So, all right. I'm going to call this here. I appreciate you guys coming. I will see some of you guys later on. I'll be on later on tonight. And then also for sure tomorrow. We do labs on Sundays. I was not really doing labs today. Today was me going through labs and making sure they were correct. I was testing them for accuracy. Tomorrow we're going to actually just do labs. And we're just going to work through stuff and hopefully get good explanations and stuff for you out there. I'm going to find somebody to raid on the Twitch side. I appreciate you guys on